today, and of course, we start on the breaking news earlier today. The news of the day, Mike Vrabel is out as Tennessee Titans head coach. Amy Adams Strunk made the decision, and that it was her decision to make. This wasn't a Rand Carthon. This wasn't she collaborated with everybody else. From what I was told, Amy Adams Strunk made the move on Mike Vrabel. In fact, as I said yesterday, I had talked to people inside the building that told me they were surprised on Monday that Vrabel wasn't fired on Sunday night. So I am not surprised by the news today at all. And again, at least the first thing, Mike Vrabel's out, and Rand Carthon will be leading the search for the next general manager. So let's start with Vrabel. Number one, I am certain that Mike Vrabel deserved to be fired. Just look at the wins and look at the losses. Look at the special teams coach and his defense of the special teams coach and the subsequent special teams disasters this season against the Saints, against the Ravens, against the Jags, and of course the 2 block punts against the Colts. Look at the offensive line coach. Mike Vrabel promoted from within, and when he did it, said, "Trust me, this is the best interview that I have done in 6 years of doing this." And the offensive line, which we didn't think could get worse, got worse. It was obvious that it wasn't working out between Rand Carthon or Mike Vrabel. But as far as Vrabel himself, he deserved to be fired. The national media is obsessed with him. I don't know if it's because he's a dude's dude. I don't know if it's because he won 3 Super Bowls with Tom Brady. I don't know what it is. But the reality is, making an AFC championship game 4 years ago should be the furthest thing from job security in the NFL. And that's what it was. The results were not there. The coaching staff was not there. The player improvement and development was not there. Do you think every draft choice John Robinson made over the last 3 years was a bad draft choice except for Roger McCreary? Or do you think there's a chance that some of these guys weren't getting coached up? So regardless of, again, how we got to it, which is important and we'll go over, what they could have done instead of outright firing him with a trade, which we'll go over. As far as making a change with the coach, Mike Vrabel is no different from Brandon Staley with the Chargers. It was time to fire Brandon Staley when it came to the Chargers. Ron Rivera in Washington. It was time to fire Ron Rivera in Washington. Honestly, it had probably been time, but they were in the process of being sold, that it wouldn't have made any sense to hire a new coach last year. It's like Bill Belichick in New England. Sure, Bill won 6 Super Bowls, but it's time. So when it came to Vrabel, as far as the results were concerned, the coaching staff, the player development, and everything else, it was time. I believe that Mike Vrabel wanted out. And quite frankly, I don't think he's disappointed by today's news. I think Mike Vrabel knows 2 things. Number one, by being fired, if he doesn't get another job, he still gets paid. And number 2, he is most likely to get another job. I told you guys last week, even when Vrabel said that he wanted to be back and do this thing with Chad and Rand and A-Rob, and I said, there's too much smoke here, folks. There is way too much smoke. Vrabel did not see eye to eye with Rand Carthon. Now, from the way it's been, told to me, is it wasn't exactly as much eye to eye on, well, this is what he wants in a defensive tackle, and this is what I want in a defensive tackle, but it's eye to eye with how the general manager should do his job, what the responsibilities of a general manager are. We just think about players, but there's a lot of general responsibilities that go to the general manager. And I'm not sure, just based off of what I heard, that if Mike Vrabel thought that Rand Carthon had the capacity or the willingness to be able to do those things. I also do think there were some major differences when it came down to making big decisions. And a lot of them, from what I was told, that quite frankly, weren't very good and may have been vetoed by Vrabel that he was frustrated with doing. Which takes me to the second part, which is while I'm fine with Mike Vrabel being fired, I think he deserved to be fired, and quite frankly, I think he's probably happy that he got fired. As a Titans fan, I am not happy with the direction the Tennessee Titans are headed in. I don't have a problem with the Titans not trading Vrabel because, as we talked about yesterday, there was a serious risk associated with trying to trade Vrabel. It might have been a risk worth taking. That's a different discussion, but I understand why they didn't do it. But Ran Carthon leading this search is the problem that I have. I don't like it. I have not heard a single positive thing when it comes to Ran Carthon from inside that building other than he's a nice guy or he's a cool guy. Other than that, I haven't heard anything about, I'll tell you, boy, Ran, he's the hardest worker here. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anybody that has given a salute to his football acumen. And as I said, right around the middle of the football season, I talked to a league source, and that person told me that was inside the building. And that person told me Ran likes to play GM more than he likes to be GM. And that makes me nervous. So today the Titans got it half right. Just like they got it half wrong last year when they hit the nuclear button on John Robinson in the middle of the season while the team was in first place. By my count, the Titans have made 6 massive decisions since Amy Adams Strunk took over as the quote-unquote controlling owner. They fired Ken Wisenhunt. They hired Malarkey and Robinson. They fired Malarkey. They fired Robinson. The shotgun marriage between Vrabel and Carthon, and today they fired Vrabel. Only the first one, the firing of Wisenhunt, was a move that made complete and total sense, and we did not have any questions surrounding it whatsoever. Every other move they made came with some sort of giant question mark surrounding the dynamics between the choices she was making and what pretty much every other team in the league does. Titans hired John Robinson, a new general manager, going to let him pick his coach? Nope. We're going to stick with the interim coach. Okay? Mike Malarkey gets to the playoffs, wins a playoff game. We're going to fire him. What? Titans admitted to the playoffs 3 years in a row, won 2 straight division titles, were en route to the third. Fire John Robinson. Huh? In the middle of a season? Has anyone ever done that before? Then they went out and they got Ran Carthon. Not the guy Mike Vrabel thought they were getting, nor wanted them to get. When you're trying to collaborate, that's probably not the best or the most conducive way to weave in that collaboration is to say, you and you collaborate. It was an arranged marriage, and it didn't make any sense. And today there's firing Vrabel, which, as Caroline said at the end of their show, half the people like, and apparently half the people don't. So while I don't have a problem with the Titans firing Vrabel, today, in my opinion, is not about Mike Vrabel. And again, I think Vrabel's probably happy today. But my issue with the Titans, my fear, my anxiety, all of it, stem from what I believe is the Titans' inability to function correctly. And I have no faith in the Titans getting it right. The Titans are the kind of people that I won't play blackjack with. They don't totally understand the rules. They do cockamamie stuff that ruins it for the rest of the table. That's what the Titans keep doing. And so turning over a search to Ran Carthon, that is another, they picked this guy instead of that guy, and before they picked that guy instead of this guy. So while the result today is justified, the firing of Vrabel, I don't have a problem with that. The process with which the Titans continue to operate, again, leaves me with anxiety about where this team is headed next. Last year, when I was bemoaning the firing of John Robinson, somebody said to me, well, you've been hard on Robinson too. You've been hard on the draft picks. You've been hard on the right tackle position. You've been hard on this and that. And I said, yeah, but that's because the Titans have had 2 good general managers in my lifetime. 2 winning general managers in my lifetime. the great Floyd Reese, and John Robinson. And in between, as a Titan fan, it felt like Moses wandering the desert for 40 years. I said, I don't want to be Moses again. That was 13 months ago. As a Titans fan, I feel like Moses, and we're nowhere near the end of the 40 years. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Amy Adams Strunk did a sit-down with Mike Keith, and there are probably 3 nuggets of important information in that. We want to go over those. We will do that next, but of course, we will get your reaction today, and we will get your reaction all day long at 615-737-1025. Both Trevor Maddich and Barry Trotz kind enough to move off of today, given the breaking news about Mike Vrabel. So we will be like a typical Titans Monday, your phones all day, 615-737-1025. What Amy Adams Strunk had to say, Stillman and Company continues, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tennessee Titans have fired Mike Vrabel as their head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Vrabel led the Tennessee to 4 consecutive winning seasons after arriving in 2018, but the Titans have experienced back-to-back frustrating seasons, finishing multiple games under 500 both times. Remember, they were up 3 scores against the Chiefs in the playoffs whenever the miraculous run of the Kansas City Chiefs really began. They turn it on, they come back, they win. King Henry then gets a 2-year, $40 million deal because he's the one that led their team there. Tannehill was quarterback over Marcus Mariota. He was hot. They were doing it. Then all of a sudden, kind of cooled off. Now, is that because the AFC South got so damn dominant potentially? Is that because Ryan Tannehill maybe found his level after some certain things happened? Is it maybe because they had to lose some guys in key spots that they didn't play as good a football? I don't think anybody on earth thinks that Mike Vrabel's a bad coach, but I do know that Schefter told us yesterday that Vrabel was not in on the hiring of the new GM that took place about a year ago. So the new GM will be able to get the head coach that he's been looking for.
That was McAfee earlier today. So Amy Adams Strunk sat down with Mike Keith, and they had about a 4-minute discussion about the decision to move on from Mike Vrabel. Amy Adams Strunk, thanks Mike and his family, said it was time for a change. It wasn't a decision that she made overnight. It was something that she had come to all season, which I kind of believe, but, they told Diana Rossini something different 6 weeks ago. Whatever that is. But then there are 3 nuggets, I think, that are pretty important that Amy Adams Strunk discusses. The first is, let's start with the trading Vrabel. So a lot of people are trying to figure out, well, that's so stupid. The Patriots are going to want Vrabel, which I do think Vrabel will be the next coach of the Patriots. Why not make them trade for Mike Vrabel? We tried to lay this out yesterday, and maybe I didn't do a good job of it. Maybe some of you weren't listening then. But this is Amy Adams Strunk when asked, why not at least think about trading Mike Vrabel?
Was consideration given to trading Mike Vrabel?
Well, yes, there was. But there's a bit of misconception about a coach's contract, say, versus a player's contract. A coach's contract, you can't trade them unless they're a willing partner to that trade. So, yes, we thought about it, but at the end of the day, with league rules the way they are, it would have maybe put us back 3 weeks. And, honestly, to get the right head coach, I was just not willing to go to the back of the line and take a chance of missing out on someone we really wanted.
Okay. I don't think that she's talking bull crap there. I get it. In fact, what we were going to talk about today on the show before Vrabel got fired was if you really, really, really wanted to trade Vrabel, would you be okay with Arthur Smith being the next coach of the Titans? And you would say, wait a minute, Arthur Smith, the next coach of the Titans? What are you talking about, Jared? And that is, hey, if all the guys that you want get zapped up by Carolina, who's interviewing everybody, Washington, Atlanta, one of these other jobs that's open, the Chargers, if the guys you really, really liked, you're going to move off of Mike Vrabel, but you're going to wait and wait and wait and wait because you want to trade for him, is that worth, at the end of the day, not having a coach out there you like, figuring out how you're going to put together your coaching staff, and just naming Arthur Smith your coach? And I think most people would say no. And that's what Amy's alluding to there, is that at that point, if you were just hell-bent on trading Vrabel, then you would have been beholden to the other team that is going to be trading for him. You would have been beholden to negotiating the compensation. You would have been beholden to their process, interviewing external minority candidates to satisfy the Rooney Rule, interviewing any other candidates that they would be interested in that they don't have to give up a pick for, all of those things. Vrabel would have to be on board with it. And then you have to interview external minority candidates, and you'd have to interview everybody to just make sure that, hey, I like Bobby Slowick a lot, but, is he the kind of guy that smells his farts and thinks it's perfume? I don't know. So instead of doing that, they just decided, all right, it's not worth the 2nd-round pick this year that we're probably going to get, so rip off the Band-Aid. And so at least I understand that for now. Amy Adams Strunk was asked about final say. Who's going to have final say? Because a lot of people think that this is Rand Carthon going to find his coach and run an organization in a traditional fashion? GM's up top, head coach is underneath. Is that going to be the case? And I am shocked that Mike Keith asked her about this, and I was shocked by her answer. Here's what she said.
Who will have control of the 53-man roster?
Today is about the coaching staff. I'm not quite ready to answer that question. I still have some things to work through, but I will answer both those questions at the end of the process.
So when it's done, you'll make this clear publicly who the head coach reports to and who has control of the roster.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Instead of the bull crap, instead of the who picked that guy, who's responsible for Andre Dillard, which I just want you all to know, we did predict when they did this. And everyone's like, oh, I think they're hiding who has final say. I'm like, no, I think that what she said, you work with you and figure it out, I think that's what they're doing. But Jared, that doesn't make any sense. I know. That's the problem. Instead of that, and the whole year of, well, did he want Andre Dillard or did he want Andre Dillard? She's going to tell us who's in control. Let us pray that they find the right head coach and that the right head coach is in control. That is how little faith I have in Ran Carthon. I have no faith in Ran Carthon at all. He's got a press conference today at 4 o'clock, and I will be fascinated by how he handles that. And hopefully, because it's at 4 o'clock and I can't be there, hopefully we'll get some good, direct, to-the-point questions and not, what'd you think of the second half of that Jags game type questions, but you never know. And then finally, Amy Adams Strunk was asked for her message to you all, the fans. This is what she said.
What does Amy Adams Strunk want Titans fans to know at this time?
I have high expectations, and I'll never apologize for that. And these fans deserve a great team, and they deserve a championship brought to the city. And that's what we're going to work towards. And I'm prepared to make the hard decisions to hopefully get us there sooner. This team has a bright future. We have Ran, we have a promising young quarterback. I mean, the sky's the limit. We've got cap space, we've got a great draft position. Things are bright for the Titans. I'm really very, very optimistic, and I'd like to thank the fans for hanging with us this year. Our season was unacceptable, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there sooner rather than later.
Okay, the reasons to be optimistic from the owner. Ran, young quarterback. We'll see when it comes to the young quarterback. I don't even know if the young quarterback can stay healthy. Cap space, which, let me just say this, Ian, that's rich coming from the owner when she says cap space.
Hey,
like,
money to spend.
I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. Like, that is, you better spend it. I mean, at least she's putting, look, I don't care about cap space. I care about actual cash. That's her cash. You better spend that. And then picking high in the draft. I do not share her optimism, but I also am not making the same choices she is making today. And as I said on Friday's program, because somebody said to me, shouldn't you be happy? Shouldn't you be happy? You've been banging on Vrabel all year. Vrabel's losing his job. Shouldn't you be happy that you're going to get what you want out of this? And as I said Friday, I want them both gone, or I want them both back, so that we don't continue this cycle that it feels like we're going on, where one day it's the GM's fault, then it's the coach's fault, then next it'll be the GM's fault. You're going to hire a coach, sign him to a 6-year contract, and next year, if you realize after 1 year this guy's incompetent, is she going to fire him and eat 5 years and then be paying 2 GMs and 2 coaches and God knows who else they're paying? Are they really going to do that? Whereas for me, I'm like, hey, this is your chance to start clean. Even the young quarterback, I'm not completely committed to, because a new coach may not like the young quarterback. This is their chance. Oh, this is their chance. But it looks like Rand's going to be leading the search. That was what I was told after Vrabel got fired. I was told that Ran Carthon will be leading the search for the next GM. And I hope Amy did her homework internally on Ran and what the first year has been like, because boy, have we heard some stories. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We are to you. 615-737-1025. And plus the whole trade aspect of Vrabel, we'll dive into that. Stillman and Company. Again, we are live today at Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators have a game tonight at 7 o'clock. Get excited about that one. And be sure to tune in Thursday night to 94.9 The Fan for Vandy women's basketball. The Commodores will be on the road taking on Kentucky. Pregame at 5:45. Tip-off is at 6. Coverage is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com.
And hopefully Vrabel will be able to get to a place that he...
Woo! Yes! It's the greatest day of my life! God
Fired him, too.
Fired him. They didn't part ways.
Idiots.
They fired Ohio guy, Mike Vrabel, Super Bowl champion, 3-time Super Bowl champion, Mike Vrabel.
Firing means you got to pay him.
Yeah, you do.
Idiots. You don't fire Mike Vrabel.
Yes.
So here's the reason why that mulleted psycho is so happy right now.
We're back.
Because there's a lot of conversations around New England. What's Bill Belichick going to do? Is he going to move on? Is he going to stay?
That was McAfee earlier today. The excitement for the no trade on Mike Vrabel. Oh, my God, they now don't have to trade him. He's going to go to the Patriots. He's going to this. He's going to that. I don't think it really matters that much. As much as it would have been nice to have gotten a trade. But, again, I'm going to use Sean McVay as the example here, right? Because that's who you want to hire. You want to hire the next Sean McVay. You hire one guy who is a guru on that side of the ball, hopefully offense. He immediately, overnight, turns your team, changes the identity of it. He's going to be your coach for 10, 15 years, whatever, however long McVay wants to be the coach there. And you never have to worry about a complete and total screw-up as long as he's the coach. If you think one of these guys out there is the next McVay, you're going to play footsie with the Patriots for a couple of months like the Jets and Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers last year in order to see the trade through? Is it worth? I think the package would have been for Vrabel their third-round pick this year, their first-round pick next year, and probably like Cole Strange, a player off the roster. That probably would have been the deal. Would it have been worth that? And seems to me, if they know who they really want, and if they know they can get the guy that they really want, then it's not. But I am worried that they may not be able to get the guy that they really want, because this is not an attractive job right now. And then the real reason that I'm nervous is because, well, quite frankly, I don't trust the guy that she's putting in charge of all this. And it's as simple as that. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Your reaction, 615-737-1025. Dylan in Antioch is going to kick us off today here on Stillman & Company. Thank you for calling. What's up, Dylan?
How's it going, Jared? Yeah,
Good.
So I think what this shows us is Mike Vrabel was extremely overvalued in the eyes of the league. We all thought that he would be worth, some pick or whatever, but it didn't turn out that way and he got fired, which I don't have a problem with. But you are completely wrong about the Rand Carthon thing. You have to let him draft a class. I mean,
Dylan, I'm going to stop you right now. I'm going to stop you right here, and I'm just going to tell you this. What I am telling you about Rand Carthon has nothing to do with his picking of the players. It has to do with the way that he runs the organization as a general manager. That I have talked to numerous people. Dylan, let me talk. I have talked to numerous people inside the building that do not believe that Rand Carthon operates the way a competent general manager should operate. And I've got examples, but if I give them out, it will give away who's telling me what. As I told you, one person in that building told me Rand Carthon likes to play GM more than he likes to be GM. And that concerns me.
I've heard you say that a few times, but you've never expounded on it. I've heard you say that. What do you mean by that?
So I'll give you, and the example I use is my example. The Kevin Byard situation that they had, the problem that they had the entire offseason, would have been completely avoidable if Rand Carthon had picked up the phone and called me and told me what the status was. Again, just, hey, I asked for Rand to call, Rand didn't call, and it became an issue that still probably lingers as a problem today. That is general managing. That is not, Jared feels entitled to have an audience with the general manager whenever he wants so that he can tell the general manager what players he thinks he should pick. No, this is, I got some info here. I need to check. This is what Floyd Reese used to always say to me, that he used to say, I told every single person in the media, I said, here's my number, call me. Because if there's something that you've got, it's easier for you to call me so that you don't look dumb and I don't look dumb. And I took that to heart. And I probably had about 2 or 3 conversations with John Robinson over the years. where it's like, hey, John, I heard this, and, I don't know, what's what. And so, and these guys, as Floyd would say, there's sometimes I can't tell you. And I'll tell you I can't tell you. But I'm not going to lie to you. And that is just, again, that is a mutual understanding of the situation. And Rand didn't see that. And I'm not the only person in the media that's had that problem here. That's the job of the general manager. It is not the job of the general manager to sell hats that are not Titans hats. So you can tell me about, well, we need more drafts to figure out what Rand can with this and that. Well, when it comes to working out players and trying to make sure that you've got the right kind of players so that you can get an effective workout in, when you're trying to sign free agents and things like that, there is a way a GM does things. Just from what I've been told, this GM does not do them. So it's not about me. See, you guys don't, that's something that we as a public don't even think about when it comes to the general manager. We just think, oh yeah, he drafted Johnny Joe in the first round. That was a great pick. It's like, right. But a general manager has to deal with a lot of different things, a lot of moving parts. And I do wonder if maybe the last general manager sometimes forgot a little bit of that, and I don't totally think, from what I've been told, that this general manager knows what he's doing. Let's go to Tim, who's up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Tim. Tim, go.
Gary, can you hear me?
Yes, go.
Oh, sorry, man. So I'm originally from Boston. I got to say, from my perspective, there's a big impact here, right? So Vrabel getting let go, for me, makes me happy as a Pats fan because all the talk at home is about Jared Mayo, who is a linebackers coach. People are forgetting that Jared Mayo outed Uncle Jerry's uncle as Juan. And also the word on the street is Bill Belichick is getting let go today because it's been revealed he is actually bonus salad. So I'll hang up and listen. Thanks, man.
I don't understand a single thing that he said. Did you understand any of that?
Honestly, I didn't hear a lot of it fully. I was on the phone, so
sure.
Yeah.
I don't understand a single thing that guy said. Here's what I will tell you about the
He told me
Patriots.
he was a Patriots fan, and this was a good day because he thinks Belichick's about to be fired, something like that.
I mean, I think Belichick's going to get fired too. I think that, I'll just tell you, I think Mike Vrabel's going to be the next coach of the New England Patriots. And guess who? I think John Robinson's going to be the general manager. I really think that's what's about to happen. I definitely think Vrabel's going to be the next Patriots coach. But I was talking with some of my buddies in Boston today, and I was like, you guys are going to hate him. You guys are going to hate Vrabel. There'll be a honeymoon period, and there will be, Vrabel, he's a Patriot. He's a dude's dude. He's a man. He's the best. There will be some of that. But then I think there's going to be a lot of, they get mad about things like the coaching staff. And they get mad if you don't develop quarterbacks. And they get mad when you don't give answers when you don't win. And they've been getting mad about that with Belichick for years. The difference is Belichick has 6 Super Bowls. Vrabel doesn't. And that whole, he was a good player, that wears off real quickly. Belichick was asked a couple weeks ago why fans should be encouraged going forward or something like that. And he said, the last 25 years. And it's like, okay, Bill, but the last 4 have been a disaster. Vrabel doesn't have those 25 years. And so my personal feeling on Vrabel is this is like Jeff Fisher going to the Rams. They told us for forever that if you fire Jeff Fisher, he'll get a job tomorrow. And he did. And he wasn't that great at that one either. More of your phone. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Plus, I do think we need to revisit something from earlier this year. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company. Again, we are live today at Bridgestone Arena. Preds and Ducks tonight, 7 o'clock. Be sure to tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits Thursday night for MTSU basketball as they take on Louisiana Tech at home at 7:30. Tip-off is at 8. And be sure to tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight as Vandy basketball is on the road at LSU. Pregame at 7:30. Tip-off at 8. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app.
Mike, you made a comment during all that that's kind of getting parsed here, talking about.
Who's parsing it, Gentry? Well, then ask the question, Jared.
The question, when you said that other organizations don't do things as well as the Patriots, and that you know because you've been there, were you referring to this organization?
They've won six Super Bowls in 20 years. That's what I was alluding to. You know what I mean? I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just extremely, you know, a lot of success. And, you know, and I guess just probably having talked to, you know, Bill and, you know, Mr. Kraft and the coaches I know they're on staff, I guess that was just my way of, you know, bringing them good luck on Sunday. No, I mean, just the amount of success that they had there, that was the whole message was just for myself and the former players and everything, just to not take things for granted. Just the because, you know, I got traded myself and then went to a team that went 6-10, and it was like, you know, where you're just trying to find ways to win other than knowing that you're going to win when you show up. It was my whole intent of saying that you know, they've had it pretty good there for 20 years, and 6 Super Bowls and however many else they went to. That was it, Jared. So appreciate you. You'll never think like me, Jared. We're nothing alike. So no, yeah, I'm not. I'm the dumbest person in here. I promise you. I guarantee you I'm the dumbest person in here. But we will never think alike in anything that we do. So if you ever want to think how I'm thinking, just think the opposite. think like a dude, think like an athlete, think like a grown man, and then you'll think how I'm thinking.
On a lighter note,
that wasn't light enough for you?
I don't think he'll miss me. By the way, somebody texted into the text line and was like, the people that are talking to you about Rand are probably Vrabel's people. You think that guy? You think his people are the ones that are talking to me about this? Come on now. By the way, that whole, hey, those comments you made in New England about how everything's not like New England up there, you talking about here? No, Jared. And then that whole whatever it was spiel. Kind of feels like in hindsight, Ian, it kind of feels like it was about here, right?
I'm not sure about that.
Oh, I am. I mean, I am. I truly believe if Vrabel wanted to be the head coach here, like really, really wanted to be the head coach here, he would be the head coach here. But that would have involved playing nice much longer than just now. Titans in Truth, Chris is up next here on our program. Of course, we're going to hear from him on a day like today. Chris, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Yes, Jared, you knew at some point I was going to give my thoughts on this. Jared, come on, man. Why are you so down about this? Come on, this is a day of celebration. Titan fans out there, wipe your eyes and wipe those tears. I know some of y'all are mad that Vrabel is gone, but you know what? This is going to end up, I think this is going to end up being a good thing.
I hope.
Vrabel they probably gave him the Mike Mularkey treatment and thought, you know what, if you make these changes, then, hey, you can still be head coach. But if not, then we have to go in a different direction. It's time to head in a new modern direction. 6-18 in the last 24 games. You got to do some winning. Vrabel wasn't doing that. And he said himself he wanted to win not based on talent. Obviously, talent is needed, but coaching does matter. So I know a lot of people, I know a lot of national media are afraid of walking into the unknown. Rather go with the one that you know than the one that you don't. But come on, let Rand do his thing. Now, if he fails,
I'm worried about his thing, Chris.
In a couple of years, okay.
I'm worried about his thing. That's the problem. And this is my, and I hear what you're saying, and I know other people are thinking the same thing. Thank you, Chris. The idea of when it comes to Rand Carthon of, hey, give him a chance, Jared. And I hear that. But think about it like this. If you owned a business, and again, just the things I've heard is that Rand Carthon does not run a competent football team. That's just what I've heard. And from different people, different examples. I mean, again, you can believe what you want to believe. A lot of you, when we were talking about Vrabel being fired or trading Vrabel or all that stuff, you didn't want to believe any of that. But when it comes to Rand, I look at it like if I owned this operation and I knew after a year that this guy didn't know what he was doing, and I really feel like that is the sentiment inside of that building from the people I've talked to, multiple people, I would not give him this kind of power. And I do think it is revealing that Amy Adams Strunk said that she will have, for you, who will have final say with the organization, and that she's not ready to name it now. Because it makes me wonder if Rand's going to, do the legwork in order to find the coach, and then Amy's going to say, we're riding with Bobby Slowick. Bobby Slowick will decide which players we draft the way that Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco decides which players we draft. But that's a different discussion for a different day. How about this? Robbie Stanley just sent me a tweet. Ian, you ready for this?
Ready.
Robbie Stanley sent me a tweet. He sent it 54 minutes ago. The Titans have an ownership problem, and it was retweeted by Carter Vrabel, Vrabel's kid.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. How about that one? Let's go to Ed, who's up next here on our program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Ed?
Jared, listen, man, I talk to you and listen to you every day, man. Listen, Jared, I don't like the word incompetence. I got to be honest with you, man. Look, if you got a problem with Rand's managerial style, that's one thing.
That's what I'm talking about.
Incompetence is a totally different situation. I know you know where I'm coming from here. Look, he's not a GM at a Walmart where the customer is always right. Look, I appreciate what Floyd Reese did for our organization, but let me tell you, you call Randall Godfrey and get his opinion on Floyd Reese. I mean, it's style, man. Give the guy an opportunity to do what he's got to do. I'm sorry I got to be hard on you, Jared, but there's a big difference between managerial style and competence. And where I'm going with this is there is absolutely no way in hell Rand Carthon would be a GM if he's not competent. Now,
plenty of people are GMs that aren't competent.
Build,
do you remember Ryan Grigson?
Football team. That happens 31 times a year with all other general managers.
Hey, do you remember Ryan Grigson of the Colts?
That, man. I mean, you need to retract that. And
I'm not retracting it. I stand by what I said, Ed. Thank you for your call. There are plenty of incompetent general managers that have been around in the NFL. Plenty. One of them resides in Jacksonville. His name's Trent Baalke. He was the one who said, let's get rid of Jim Harbaugh and bring in Jim Tom Sula. And then he said, let's get rid of Jim Tom Sula. Let's bring in Chip Kelly. And then finally they had enough. They blew it up and they brought in Kyle Shanahan. It's been pretty good since they did that. Plenty of GMs are incompetent. Mike Reinfeldt, who was a terrible general manager with the Tennessee Titans. You all remember that. Somebody told me inside the building, Mike Reinfeldt's biggest problem was he wanted to be home every night by 6 o'clock. So he'd leave the office, and at 6 o'clock, he'd be at home. Time for dinner. Let's watch TV. That's not what those GMs do. And so while it's harsh to say that, just what I've heard is that Rand doesn't run it the way that, and it's not like it's a style difference. It's a competence difference. And maybe I'm wrong, and Rand will land Bobby Slowick, and they'll draft all these great players and 6 Super Bowls, and I don't know. But that's not what people inside that building think today, at least the people I've talked to. Michael's been waiting patiently and is up next here on the Head Coaching Search. Thank you for calling. What's up, Michael?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. So I just got a quick question for you, real simple. Who do you want to be the head coach of this team going forward? I'll hang up and listen.
That is a great question. And Ian, would you like to read for the people what is on the grid coming up next here on our program?
Jared's list for the next Titans head coach.
There you go. I've got it. How many candidates? I got 6. Technically 7. I've got a safety school. You know when you're picking a college and it's like, well, if I don't get into Dartmouth, Yale, Harvard, or USC, I can always go to Louisville. I've got a safety school on the list as well. The Jared Stillman Titans head coaching list is next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Here on the program, again, the news of the day, Mike Vrabel out as Titans coach. Ran Carthon press conference in 1 hour. We will have it live and in its entirety. And Rand will be leading the search for the next head coach. Amy Adams Strunk will ultimately decide on the next coach. And as Amy Adams Strunk said earlier today in her sit-down with Mike Keith, she will decide who will have final say in the organization, and then will tell all of us, my guess would be when they hire their coach in 2 or 3 weeks. Again, you cannot talk to anybody in person who is on another NFL team until after the divisional round of the playoffs. So you can have some Zoom meetings and you can reach out for permission and things like that, but you cannot hire anybody until after the divisional round of the playoffs. And as we know, teams that are still playing, they always have to wait until after their teams are done, and then you can officially make the hire. So here's my list for who I want to be the next Titans head coach. And I know that a lot of these guys may not have any interest in the Titans. I know that out of this group, some of these guys are going to be straight bozos. I don't know. And that's why they have an interview process. But here's who right now I'd be circling saying, hey, these are the people I want to talk to. We start with my number one choice for the next Titans head coach.
Number one.
Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. If you've been listening to this program at all for the last 2.5 months, you know that I want Bobby Slowick. And that Rand Carthon, with his relationship, I assume he has with Slowick because they were both in San Francisco, may give the Titans an inside track. If I owned the team and Rand Carthon wanted to keep his job through all of this, the number one thing he would do is say, Jared, I can get us Bobby Slowick. And Bobby Slowick would then run the organization. He's young. I get it. He's got 1 year as a coordinator, though he was essentially the offensive coordinator in San Francisco the year before. But 1 year as a play caller with the Houston Texans this year. And I think he's done a marvelous job. Now, they have good players in Houston, right? Laramie Tunsil is a good player. Dalton Schultz is a good player. Tank Dell and Nico Collins are good players. But Bobby Slowick is the one who's running that whole offensive operation. So my guess is Bobby Slowick was a big part of why they decided to sign Dalton Schultz, why they decided to trade for Shaq Mason, why they decided to sign George Fant to play right tackle, why they decided to draft Tank Dell, and probably Slowick was a part of the equation for why they decided to draft C.J. Stroud. He is a Shanahan guy. He is the junior Shanahan. And while it may not work, a lot of these Shanahan and McVay guys are having a ton of success. I don't think it's an accident that when they put together these teams and we get down to December and there are still some teams hanging around that we're looking at, that it is Kevin O'Connell's team that is hanging around, that it is Zach Taylor, again, an offensive McVay-Shanahan guy. It's his team that's hanging around. It's the Packers with LaFleur, again, and I don't like LaFleur, but they're hanging around. So Bobby Slowick, number one choice. Again, I would still want to interview all the other guys, and maybe some of these guys would be better, but Slowick's number one.
Number two.
Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator in Miami. So again, he is not a Shanahan guy per se because he hasn't crossed paths, I believe, with Shanahan, but he has been the offensive coordinator under Mike McDaniel in Miami. And I think Mike McDaniel, albeit with Tyreek Hill, I think Mike McDaniel has done a good job. I think they are maximizing Tua Tagovailoa. Golf. I think they are maximizing what they have in Tua. I am not a Tua believer at all, but they've done a pretty good job. And again, he's off that tree, right? McDaniel was a coordinator for Shanahan, long-time Shanahan guy, goes all the way back to being a ball boy with the Broncos, and this guy is the offensive coordinator in Miami, so put him on the list at number two.
Number three.
Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. You may remember his dad, Bill Callahan, was the head coach of the Raiders after John Gruden ended up going to Tampa Bay. They won the AFC. They beat the Titans in the AFC title game. And then Bill Callahan never won a football game again in his life. But Brian Callahan has been the OC of the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, notice a trend? We're going off of the tree. The McVay, the Shanahan tree. And because Zach Taylor is a part of the McVay tree, Brian Callahan is the next guy on there. And it is not nothing to me that Cincinnati has managed to have success, albeit not the same like success with Joe Burrow, but they did have some moments this year with Jake Browning. They did look competent at times with a backup quarterback. I think it's a good offensive operation there in Cincinnati. I'd have interest in Brian Callahan.
Number 4.
Todd Monken of the Baltimore Ravens. So when I think of adding Todd Monken, I know the offense will not be the same offense or the same exact play calls that they run for Lamar Jackson. But I do think that Todd Monken is a really, really good coach. I believe Todd Monken's got head coaching experience. He's got NFL experience. He's got Baltimore experience. I mean, Todd Monken in year one of the Ravens has absolutely transformed that offense. He's done a fabulous job. And I think not about Will Levis running the Lamar Jackson style offense that they're running right now in Baltimore, but I think of him running what Stetson Bennett was running at Georgia, where they did use the athleticism of the quarterback, but they had a great passing game. They didn't always have to go to it, and they could run the ball effectively, just like the Ravens run the ball really, 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 really well. But I think Todd Monken is ready for an NFL head coaching job, and I am amazed by what he's done with the Ravens this year. And again, I'm thinking Will Levis in the Stetson Bennett Georgia offense, and I like it.
Number 5.
Ben Johnson's on the list. He has to be the offensive coordinator of the Lions. If for no other reason, he's got to be better than the last two offensive coordinators you've had. The guy has made Josh Reynolds, has taken him and made him back into an NFL player. Khalif Raymond, he has used, he's figured out. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 4th-round pick. He is an absolute dog. Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, the way that they use him in Montgomery, it is beautiful. And he's gotten the most out of Jared Goff. Ben Johnson, though, is going to be a coveted candidate. There's going to be a lot of teams that want Ben Johnson. And I'm not convinced Ben Johnson's all that much better than all these other guys that I put on the list. But I do have to put Ben Johnson on the list because, well, quite frankly, I don't know how you can have a list without Ben Johnson on it.
Number 6.
So this is one that I was pointed to by somebody inside the NFL. Dan Pritchard, the quarterback coach of the Bengals. You're probably thinking, who the hell is Dan Pritchard? And I was thinking the exact same thing too. Who the hell's Dan Pritchard? He's the quarterback coach of the Bengals. I talked to somebody inside the league today who said, hey, don't rule out Dan Pritchard. It felt like hey, I want to bring Dan Pritchard I want to bring him to you so that you'll research him a little bit, maybe talk about it, get his name going around, and that's exactly what's happening here. So Dan Pritchard was in Indianapolis, I believe, under Ryan Griggs and Bill Polian, that kind of group, and he worked in personnel. So he's got a personnel background. He has been the quarterback coach of the Bengals for the last couple of years. I've been told that he is a really good guy that understands both coaching and scouting, and he is great to work with and develop players. So just because the person who told me about Dan Pritchard went out of their way to say, hey, look for this guy, that would be enough for me to put him on the list and interview him for the job. And a quarterback coach who's not a coordinator, it's not the craziest thing in the world. Zach Taylor was a quarterback coach who was not a coordinator when he became head coach. I believe Sean Payton was a quarterback coach in Dallas under Bill Parcells. So I wouldn't rule out Dan Pritchard. Again, it doesn't matter what the credentials of the guy are. It matters whether or not he's the guy that can get the job. And then finally, my safety school. This one you guys are going to crap on, but again, this is if I can't get anybody that I want to take the job, and I know he'll take the job and do a competent job.
Number 7.
Arthur Smith. I know Atlanta was a disaster, I think, but I didn't follow it every day. I don't understand how Arthur could mess up the quarterback situation so poorly, given what I know about Arthur. But what I know about Arthur is I know he's a good guy, I know he's a smart guy, I know he's respected by everybody, and I know that freaking dude can coach. That dude made Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith gagillionaires. That dude is a billionaire, and he's incredibly relatable. He's the kind of positivity that's not toxic positivity, but more so encouraging positivity that I think this organization could use. And again, I think Arthur's really smart. Now, in the interview process, I think it'd be really important to figure out, dude, how'd it go sideways in Atlanta the way that it did? Dude, why didn't you turn around and give the ball to Bijan Robinson like he was Derrick Henry? Dude, why are you doing a weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show? Shouldn't you be coaching? All are valid questions. And I did not like that Arthur was doing a weekly spot on the Pat McAfee show. But again, he's my safety school. He's the guy that I know will be out there. And one positive when it comes to Arthur is as far as the coaching staff is concerned, you wouldn't have to go out and completely hire a new staff. Just hopefully get rid of some of the bozos and keep some of the good ones. And I think he would know that. So that's the list. It starts with Bobby Slowick. Frank Smith, Brian Callahan, Todd Monken, Ben Johnson, Dan Pritchard, the quarterback coach of the Bengals, Arthur Smith. Ian, you notice a theme amongst these guys?
Offensive guys?
All offensive coaches. I am not interested in a defensive coach. The game, to me, is trending in that direction. That it is offense, offense, offense. And the other reason that I think the game is trending there is because if you've got a great offensive coordinator, you will lose him. Sean McVay has lost about 9 coaches since he's taken over the Rams. It doesn't matter. So instead of the Titans lost Arthur Smith and now they went to this bozo, it is this guy's running the offense, this guy's coaching the quarterback, and even if you've got a young quarterback and Will Levis pops, you don't have to worry about Brian Dable going to the Giants and Josh Allen throwing an interception every other pass. Because his coordinator's really his head coach. Offense, 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 offense. That's my list. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. We will get to your phones next here on Stillman and Company. Again, we are live at Bridgestone Arena where the Preds take on the Anaheim Ducks. And there is a Rand Carthon press conference scheduled for 4 o'clock, and we will have that live and in its entirety. Predators fans, do not miss tomorrow night's Smashville Live at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue at 6 o'clock. See the Predators players up close and personal, autographs and pictures available. This week's special guests are Juuso Parssinen and Philip Tomasino. Smashville Live is brought to you by the Black Abbey Brewing Company.
Bobby Slowick worked with his dad, Bob Slowick, was a longtime defensive coordinator in the NFL. And Bobby was a defensive assistant working with Mike Shanahan in Washington. That's how he got to know Kyle Shanahan. And when they got fired and Kyle went to Cleveland and Atlanta, then San Francisco, Bobby spent 3 years working with Pro Football Focus, watching tape constantly. And he told us that experience was great for him. So then when Kyle Shanahan gets the head coaching job, two guys he calls up, Bobby Slowick to be a defensive assistant, and D'Amico Ryans to be a defensive assistant. So after watching Slowick on defense, I did a column on Kyle about this after the Texans hired Ryans and Slowick, and he said, I thought he would do great on offense, so I stole him from the defense. And I said, well, you're a head coach. You don't have to steal anything. He said, but I kind of felt bad about it. But he did it. He thought it was great for him to do that. And he became Kyle Shanahan's right-hand man. Last year, he was the passing game coordinator. And Shanahan told me, he said, last year was the best offensive season I've ever had. I said, better than Atlanta when you went to the Super Bowl? And he said, yes. And he said it was not a coincidence that Bobby had most of his more responsibilities and more influence and game plans and everything on our offense than he'd ever had.
There you go. That's John McClain on Bobby Slowick. By the way, John McClain will join us today at 5:30. That's the guy I want. That's my number one guy, Bobby Slowick. But again, if I owned the team, I'd be so nervous about screwing this up that I would make sure that the interview goes well than me just say, just go hire Bobby Slowick because one guy on the radio said that about him. And you got to interview him. Make sure he doesn't pick his boogers and eat them, that kind of thing. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kinston has been waiting patiently and is up next. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Kinston?
What's going on, Jared? Big day. I don't like this move. I've been calling the last couple of days. I couldn't get to you. I had to hang up, but I want to give you kudos, first of all, because you've been on top of this for a minute. I don't think it's a good move. I don't agree necessarily that it has to be a strictly offensive guy moving forward.
When you say good move, you're talking about the firing of Vrabel?
Yeah, I don't like that. I do think your criticism of Rand is warranted, though. I don't think picking the unproven guy over the proven guy is a good move. The last time we made a move like this, where we let the defensive head coach, leader, locker room culture guy, go for the offensive guru, is when we went from Jeff Fisher to Ken Wisenhunt, where fans kind of wanted, kind of the same sentiments, right? And look how that worked out for us. I look at D'Amico Ryans down in Houston as a defensive head coach that had great success. I look at Frank Wright in Carolina as an offensive guy who had bad success.
Sure.
I look at Antonio Pierce as a guy that rejuvenated and a defensive guy that kind of got the Raiders going, and they moved on from an offensive guy. So my point is kind of those defensive guys. I understand fans kind of want to get away from the run the ball and slow down offense. They want something more exciting. But a lot of the time, man, those defensive coaches, those guys that can set a culture that can kind of have, galvanize the players in the locker room, I think that's something that a lot of fans are skipping over. And, Slow gets my guy too. I like him, but the X's and O's, man, sometimes don't mean that you're a good leader or locker room guy. And I just hope we're not going the same patch. And I think it's coming up there. Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, no, that's why you interview these guys, right? Like, that's why you interview them, because Bobby Slowick might be best to lock himself in his office and then come down for practice and just say, all right, we're going to run double wide, queen, X, eagle eye, 24, zeta, whatever. And then they run the plays, and he's like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But he's not the guy getting through it. That may be true. That's why you interview him. That is the one benefit, I would hope, of having Rand Carthon there, is that Rand Carthon knows Bobby Slowick. Like, he's seen Bobby Slowick work on a daily basis. But I do think you're better off with an offensive head coach. I'll put it to you like this. I agree. A good defensive coach is better than a bad offensive coach. But I think you're better off with a good offensive coach over a good defensive coach, considering where the game is headed today and the way that teams constantly change coaches and are zapping up those offensive guys. I mean, again, I want the next Sean McVay is what I want. I want the next Kyle Shanahan. That's what I want. And if that's Dan Pritchard again, the QB coach of the Bengals, then hire. That's what I want. And that's what I want. You got a young quarterback. Now, I'm not married to the young quarterback, which we'll get into. But again, like, I still think a good offensive coach is better than a good defensive coach in today's NFL. Weston is up next here on our program. Thank you for waiting. What's up, Weston?
No call. Just wanted to weigh in on this one because, I mean, it's a shocking move a little bit in a sense, but at the same time, I kind of saw it coming after the way the years went. But outside of the NFL, if you want an offensive guy, some college coaches for the offensive coordinator positions are pretty good candidates. I mean, and who would you pick if you had to go maybe to the college level outside of the NFL if you didn't get an NFL candidate?
I'm not getting a college coach. I'm going to just tell you right, and I'm not even interested. Thank you, Wes. I'm not even interested in Jim Harbaugh. Now, I don't think Jim Harbaugh would be interested in the Titans, but I'm not interested in Jim Harbaugh. Not going to happen. But I'm not interested in a college coach. But I'll play this game. I got to hire a college coach. Boy, oof. I don't know. Who's a college coach? I'm not hiring Lincoln Riley. I want an offensive coach, so no Kirby Smart or Nick Saban.
No Lane Kiffin?
Hell no. Does that leave me with Josh Heupel?
It's an option.
I got Jeff Brom. That's who I'd hire. Jeff Brom. That would be if I had to pick a college coach, that's who I'm hiring. 615-737-1025. More your phone, 615-737-1025. Plus, what does this mean for Will Levis? And what I think it should mean for Will Levis. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Ran Carthon's press conference in 30 minutes. Hey, be sure to, here on Stillman & Company, I think I've done all the reads. I'm very proud of myself. Stillman & Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
What does Amy Adams Strunk want Titans fans to know at this time?
I have high expectations, and I'll never apologize for that. And these fans deserve a great team, and they deserve a championship brought to the city. And that's what we're going to work towards. And I'm prepared to make the hard decisions to hopefully get us there sooner. This team has a bright future. We have Rand, we have a promising young quarterback. I mean, the sky's the limit. We've got cap space, we've got a great draft position. Things are bright for the Titans. I'm really very, very optimistic, and I'd like to thank the fans for hanging with us this year. Our season was unacceptable, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there sooner rather than later.
There you go. That was Amy today with Mike Keith. And you heard her talk about, hey, we got Rand Carthon, which you know is not a positive for me. We got a young quarterback. We got cap space, which does matter coming from her because she probably knows the cap's fake too. So that does mean that she's going to plan on spending some money. And they've got good draft position, which is never a good thing to have, but it is what it is. So in there, she mentioned the young quarterback. Now, let me just say this when it comes to deciding the next head coach. Will Levis is a part of the consideration when hiring my next coach, but it does not mean that Will Levis is the consideration when hiring a new coach. And I do feel like each of the last two times, they have talked about the quarterback and the development of the quarterback and what this coach can do for the quarterback, and they have talked about that as if they went hand in hand. And in each case, you know, Mike Mularkey did do some good things with Marcus Mariota, but it wasn't good enough for everybody. And then in the case of Mike Vrabel, he was supposed to come in, and they're going to bring Matt LaFleur in from the Rams, and this was supposed to be what unleashed Mariota. And it never happened. And the reason why is because Marcus is a backup. That's why. And so when it comes to Will Levis, I don't know how good Will Levis is going to be or not. I worry about his decision-making, and if that decision-making doesn't get better, some of you assume that the decision-making will get better. I get nervous about some guys that their decision-making is a problem their entire career, like Josh Allen sometimes, Brett Favre sometimes, Jay Cutler sometimes. Doesn't get much better. But I'm also worried about whether or not he's injury-prone, that being Levis. And I think what we can do is instead of saying, like, okay, Bobby Slowick or Frank Smith or whoever, you're brought in to make Will Levis a superstar. I think that's not fair to ask. I think it is fair to ask, can you maximize what Will Levis is giving me? And if he pops, he pops. But he may not be good enough. And these guys may think that, because when they sit down in the interview process, they may tell you right then and there, like, we didn't like Levis. I didn't like Levis in the draft process, talking about what that coach may say. I liked Levis fine. I didn't love Levis, and I don't love Levis now. And as much as I hate what I call MGS, my guy syndrome, which would be if the coach gets here and then after a year the coach doesn't like Levis because Levis isn't my guy, and you know what my guy syndrome is. As much as I hate that, I don't want to force the next coach to love Will Levis just to get the job. I want you to tell me what the best path for us to win is. And if that path for you does not include Will Levis, but the rest of that path makes perfect sense and is a great plan, and I believe in you, and I think these players will believe in you, then let's figure it out and then figure out what to do with Levis. And I hate it for Levis because I think he's got potential, but I'm not hitching my wagon to anything and making the coach getting the job dependent upon that. Because the last thing I want is I do not want the next coach of the Titans sitting there telling me that, oh, I can do this with Levis and I can do that with Levis and Levis is great and Levis this, Levis that in order to get the job, and then 6 months in say, oh, I hate this guy. That's the last thing I want. Again, the forced marriages, they got to stop around here. 615-737-1025. I don't know if I've said our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com this hour or not, but they are. Michael is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Michael.
Yes, sir. It's an honor to speak with you.
Thank you.
I had a question. What would you think about bringing in Jim Schwartz, Cleveland's defensive coordinator? He's already been in Nashville. He was loved here. And if he hired the right offensive coordinator, I think with his overhaul of our defense and the coordinator, I think we could really be something. What do you
Good call,
think,
Michael.
Jerry?
Thank you for your call. Vote for Jim Schwartz there. Let me say this. I think Schwartz is the kind of guy that the Titans need on the defensive side of the ball. So when I bring in my offensive guru, whether it's Slowick or Smith or Johnson or Arthur or whoever, Callahan, Munkin, when I bring in my offensive guru, I want to farm out the other side of the ball. And Schwartz that's what they're doing in Cleveland. Stefanski runs the offense, and Schwartz runs the defense. That's what McVay's done. That's what Shanahan's done. That's what all those guys do. That's what Mike McCarthy's doing in Dallas. Dan Quinn, you got the defense. So Schwartz is the kind of guy who I would bring in to run the defense, and the defensive coaching staff is your responsibility, and the defense is your responsibility, but he's not going to be my head coach. And that's really how I feel about all these defensive guys. I'll use a name, and you guys are going to poo-poo this to the sun. Brandon Staley. Not to be the head coach, but Brandon Staley, you run the defense. I have no idea if Brandon Staley is a good defensive coordinator or not. I guess he did a good job for McVay, and that's what landed him the head job that he got, but I didn't follow it or track it or whatever. But it's that kind of guy. Preferably old. The old, the Vic Fangio, the Wade Phillips, the Jim Schwartz, preferably old. But that's what these offensive guru teams are doing. The Vikings, Kevin O'Connell's the coach. He's a McVay guy. And he gives Brian Flores the defense and says, all right, it's on you, Brian. That's what I'm looking for. So I don't know, again, the latest defensive coaches that got fired. Staley's the one who pops into my head. But that's what I'm talking about. If Antonio Pierce is not kept by the Raiders, that guy, that's what I'm looking for. David is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, David?
Jared, I wonder how we reconcile the fact that Vrabel got fired, but Rand Carson is still here. And as fans, we don't know anything about Rand Carson. I mean, the Predators, they tell us what's going on. The Titans haven't. And I know you haven't been a big fan of Carson. How do we reconcile that?
Well, I kind of wonder what you mean by reconcile.
Well, I mean, the fact that you wanted to clean house. You wanted everybody gone. And Vrabel's gone. Carson's here. How much power is he going to have? And that sort of thing.
All right. Thank you for your call, David. So I don't like it. I mean, again, when it comes to today's news, it's not as binary for me about Vrabel's fired. Yay! Right? It's not as cut and dry. Whereas here with the Predators, when it was Barry Trotz has decided that John Hines is out, it really was like, yay! Right? Because I like the path the Predators are on. When it comes to the Titans, I really don't. I think the whole idea of the collaboration thing, I think that's so stupid. I mean, I think every team should collaborate, right? Like that and that's not football, that's everything. The general manager needs to have a good discussion, a good rapport and collaboration and go over stuff with the baseball manager or the general manager of a basketball team with the basketball coach. That's not just football. But I think that forced collaboration of you and you figure it out, that I don't like at all. When it comes to Rand, I'm not impressed. And this next press conference is going to be very, very, very important. Press conferences themselves aren't that really important. Like when the Titans hire a new coach and he has his press conference, you guys will see that first press conference and say, got the right guy. I'll tell you, That Dan Pritchard, that guy, he's a superstar. He's going to be a great coach. We got the next Sean McVay, Jared. You're going to say that after. It doesn't matter what he says. But this press conference, where there are more questions than there are answers by the Titans firing Mike Vrabel, where there are a lot of questions surrounding Ran Carthon, and where there were a lot of questions about what happened this past year and him being somewhat culpable for it, this is going to be an important press conference to see if Ran can handle that and see if Ran can be accountable and see if Ran's going to BS us. And we'll see. And I also am going to say this. This is a big press conference for the media around here, too. You know, they put it at 4 o'clock. Did they put it at 4 o'clock? Because at 4 o'clock, that means I absolutely positively can't be there to ask questions? I don't know. That's their business, not mine. But, I mean, we're not wasting time. Ran, are you looking for an offensive coach or a defensive coach? He's not going to tell you that. Forget about that. The questions that are important is basically whether or not Ran can do this job or what ownership Ran has for what went down this year. Is it all Vrabel's fault? How much power did he have? And I hope they don't let him off the hook. And so this is a big press conference, both for the media and for Ran. I couldn't believe the media didn't ask Vrabel after the game the other day about all the rumors that were surrounding his job. They didn't ask him. And I asked one guy in the media, he said, well, we'll ask him on Monday. Ha! And then somebody else told me, yeah, he goes, I wish I could have that one back. So this is a big press conference for Ran Carthon. You use the word reconcile. I mean, I guess the way that you can reconcile is Ran Carthon does a good job as far as finding the next coach and building a roster together with somebody that he wants to work with, that he chooses to work with, that chooses to work with him. But if the Titans were a stock, I'd be shorting it. I'll promise you that much. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We continue. The news of the day, Mike Vrabel out as Titans head coach. Ran Carthon press conference at 4 o'clock. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
who will have control of the 53-man roster?
Today is about the coaching staff. I'm not quite ready to answer that question. I still have some things to work through, but I will answer both those questions at the end of the process.
So when it's done, you'll make this clear publicly who the head coach reports to and who has control of the roster.
Absolutely, yes.
That was Amy Adams Strunk, so at least I'm glad that she cleared that up, that she will clear it up. But I don't know the answer to that. Rand Carthon press conference in 10 minutes. Also, Diana Rossini, ready, steady, Vrabel. Diana Rossini will be on with Robbie and Joe tomorrow morning at 7:30. If you want to know how Mike Vrabel feels about the situation, we'll have to discover who the insider covering the Titans is going to be going forward, who Rand's going to leak to, who the new coach is going to leak to. We'll have to do that. We will miss that. Jamal is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Jamal.
What's up, Jared?
Go ahead.
Listen, I am tired of Tennessee having these first-year head coaches. We always have to watch a coach cut their teeth here at Tennessee. So we know when we get them, it always takes 2 to 3 years, to get them to get their things together. And I think that's part of the reason why we can't get top free agents. I know of a name out there right now that we should go get.
I bet it's Jim Harbaugh.
Boom. That's it. And plus, he has San Francisco ties with Carthon.
That was before Carthon got there.
Okay. Well, they both know how to win. And
how do we know that Rand Carthon knows how to win?
Well, all right, you got a point on that. But he comes from a winning community, a winning personality type of team.
I just don't think – I hear what you're saying about Harbaugh, and I, got to give credit for what Harbaugh – thank you, Jamal. Got to give credit for what Harbaugh did at Michigan and bringing them back to prominence and winning a national title last night. And that holding call last night was absurd. Probably not enough to lose my mind over it. But and I'm happy for Sharon Moore, the kind of the deputy coach there that I hope gets the head job with Harbaugh going to the NFL. First off, I think Harbaugh's going to the Chargers. I think that Harbaugh's going to the Chargers. I think the Chargers, I think that's the best job out there. It's in Los Angeles. I think he's going to take that job. That being said, if you want collaboration, like Amy Adams Strunk keeps saying, I'm not sure Harbaugh is your guy. I could be wrong about that. So Herb in Kentucky has a text into the text line that says, if you are right, talking about me, if you are right about Rand Carthon, we are in big trouble. I have been in leadership and management for 50 years. My experience is that weak and incompetent managers look for people weaker and less competent than themselves. Which, again, Amy has gone out of her way right there in that interview with Mike Keith, and I don't think that question from Mike Keith about who's going to have final say on the roster, I'm not sure that question gets asked to the owner if the owner hasn't condoned it ahead of time. But I do think that it is at least noteworthy that she's not committing to Rand Carthon having that final say, which is a little surprising if Rand is going to lead the search, which I've been told is the case. But this press conference is going to be a big one for Rand Carthon. Now, Rand Carthon has done, I think, 5 press conferences since he's taken over the Titans. He did his first one, which was, again, that, opening press conference. Everybody's happy. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everybody. And everybody always has a good – Jeremy Pruitt had a good first one of those. Then there was the Combine. There was a press conference in which he said a bunch of confusing stuff about Tannehill, but nothing crazy. Then there was the draft in which he also, gave that I had the conversation with Ryan, and that'll stay between me and Ryan, which apparently pissed Tannehill off. So I don't know, that one wasn't very remarkable. Then there was the draft, and of course, remember the hey, we should be positive about these draft picks. This is the best moment of their lives. If he gets like that today, we're in trouble. I'm just going to say, as a Titan fan, I could say we. I do feel like with Rand, if Rand's in charge, I do feel like we are in trouble. That's just me, and I know that everybody else feels differently, and everybody wants to believe differently, and maybe you're right and I'm wrong. But I am truly worried about that. Texture says, I hope the next head coach of the Titans can answer questions asked by the media without getting annoyed for no reason. I think that happens all the time. I can't criticize a coach for doing that. I didn't have a problem with Vrabel. I'll be honest. I don't have a problem with Vrabel. I'm sure Vrabel doesn't like me, but I don't have a problem with Vrabel. But it was time for him to go. The problem is I think it's time to start over and clean house, and that's not what we're going to get. Rand Carthon's press conference is next. We'll break early so we can have that live in its entirety. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, we are getting set for the Rand Carthon press conference. He is at the microphone at St. Thomas Sports Park. We're live at Bridgestone Arena where the Predators take on the Anaheim Ducks tonight at 7 o'clock. So we are awaiting Rand Carthon. He is already up there, and he will be answering questions, and it could get kind of hostile. I mean, again, I'm not saying I hope it does get hostile, but I hope he's asked hard questions, and I hope he's accountable. And I really, really want to hear him explain where he feels like this thing went awry on his part. Not sure we'll hear that. I'm sure it'll be a lot about the next coach he's looking for and what they're looking at and things like that. And I'm sure he'll defer to Amy when it comes to why they fired Mike, since he doesn't have the power to do so. But we are awaiting Rand Carthon's press conference, and Rand is at the podium now. He's just apparently not talking. So once he starts talking, we will air that live and in its entirety. Again, the Titans have fired Mike Vrabel. Diana Rossini will be joining Robbie and Joe tomorrow at 7:30, and we'll hear what she has to say on that front, probably coming from Vrabel. And Amy Adams Strunk today met with Mike Keith, sat down and talked about the decisions that they made and the power structure, and she said that it wasn't something that she decided in one day. It was something that over time, all season, finally came to her to make the decision and the conclusion that Mike Vrabel could not continue forward as coach. They were not going to wait out a trade, which given the rules would have been required. And her message to the fans is that the Titans are in a very positive place with Rand Carthon, Will Levis, cap space, and a high draft position going forward, also called this season's results unacceptable. And when asked who will have final say over the 53-man roster, she said that she is yet to determine that, but that she will when they hire the next coach, and she will announce it and make it known then. That being said, I've been told that Rand Carthon will be leading the search for the next general manager, or excuse me, for the next coach. And again, Amy Adams Strunk is going to be the one that decides to make the hire as to who the coach is going to be or who the coach is not going to be. Do we not have Rand yet? I mean, he's been sitting there at the table for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, not yet. Oh, here we go.
Rand Carthon at the podium.
You know, obviously with the news this morning, Miss Amy informed Coach Vrabes that he would no longer be the head coach here. First and foremost, I want to thank Vrabes for what he's done here the last 6 years, particularly the time that we've spent together. I want to thank Jen and Carter and Tyler for their sacrifices, for allowing him to put in the time that he put in here while here as our head coach. I also want to say, I know there's been a lot of speculation over the last, 2-3 months or whatever it's been about the nature of Mike and I's relationship. I will say that Mike and I, we've never had any issue versus whether it's personal or professional. We worked well together and had a good relationship. We were in lockstep. So I want to finally come out and, dispel that. And, I wish Vrabes, nothing but the best. Consider him a friend. And I feel like we'll be that way moving forward. And so with that said, I'll open up for questions.
Rand, you said when at the draft or when you were introduced that your number one thing was to serve Mike. Given today's developments, did you fail at that?
I don't think we failed. I just think, one of the things Mike's always says is that the ball isn't round, so you don't know how it's going to bounce. And I don't think the ball bounced our way. We had 7 one-score losses this year, so we were in games, just the ball didn't bounce our way. I wouldn't consider it a failure, but by no means, were we happy with the results. And that's just something we've talked about, privately and as a group over the last couple months of, how do we get this thing right and how do we get this thing, in the right direction. So I wouldn't call it a failure, but it's definitely not up to the standard.
You mentioned the same vision, right? Rand, did you and Mike share the same vision?
Yeah, like I said,
talked about where things were going.
Philosophically, like I said back in I think it was my press conference, our football foundations are generally the same in where he cut his teeth and how I was raised to see the game of football. Realistically, it's only so many ways that you could play the game of football, only so many different schemes. Like I said, our visions were aligned. We saw it a lot the same, and we worked well together.
So where's the disconnect? I guess, Buck, I guess what I meant there was in terms of where the franchise was, rebuild versus, still trying to win another year.
Yeah, well, I think that part, it's a lot of moving parts, to the game of football. And there's no secret, we've dealt with a lot of injuries here, over the last, 3 seasons or whatever it is. And, we're having to mix and match pieces, on a week-to-week basis. And it makes it hard. It makes it hard for any organization, to do that. So, we have a lot of work ahead of us of trying to, figure this whole thing out and how we can keep, our key guys out there on the field and keep them available. But it was just one of those things. It wasn't we weren't aligned or it didn't work. It's really hard when you take the field. I think we took the field Sunday with 9 starters out, and, we were able to come away with a victory. But if you look over the last couple of weeks, look how many starters, that we've had out due to injuries. And it's just hard. It's hard to win football games in the National Football League as is with a healthy roster. It's just, it becomes even harder, when you don't have, all your key guys.
Along those lines, Rand, along those lines.
Mike Vrabel doesn't have a job today. What is the disconnect there?
Well, I think Amy spoke to her decision, of making, of the decision she made and why, and that was about her long-term vision, of the organization, and that's really, I think, what it was.
Along the lines of all the, you talked about the season and being philosophically aligned and all, but in that regard, a couple of big moves were made in season. The switch from Tannehill to Levis at quarterback, the firing of Craig Aukerman. Were those unanimous decisions by the organization at the time?
Yes, every decision that we made was unanimous. Mike and I, we speak every morning, whether I come to his office or he comes to my office, and we talk about the task in hand for the day. When we got to the point of making the move from Ryan, at that time when we made the initial switch, Ryan was injured. And that was about, now we get to see what Levis can do. And Levis went out and he played well. I think had everybody, in this room and our fan base excited about what was to come. And so we decided to make the decision to, move forward and see what that's going to look like in the future in his development.
Did Amy have a say in those decisions?
We consulted with Miss Amy. One thing about Miss Amy is, she hired us to do a job and she allows us to do our job.
I think in your introduction, you said that the number one item on your to-do list was collaborating with Mike. How do you feel like you did at achieving that or not achieving that?
Like I said, we worked well together and we got along, and I feel like our collaboration was fine. And so again, whether it's in that given time when I spoke to the press conference and I said I wanted to serve Mike, serve this coaching staff, that's going to be the philosophy moving forward. No matter who our next head coach is, who our coaching staff is, our job in personnel is to serve them. And to provide them with players, that they want to coach and that fit their scheme, and I think that's the nature of the position. The general manager position isn't like what it used to be. I think back in the day, the GM ran the business side. He did everything, and this is more the philosophies of you see these teams that are still playing, they're more in the collaborative, sphere of both the head coach and GMs working together.
Video, Amy said that some consideration at least was given to a trade of Mike Vrabel. Can you elaborate on that? And was he ever directly asked if he would be part of a trade?
I don't know the nature of his conversations with Miss Amy about him being traded. I do understand the question about a trade. It's just not as simple and cut and dry. And you look over the history of coaches being traded, it's just not a lot in recent times. And when you say recent times, I know Sean Payton was just traded for, but he was out, and New Orleans had a coach in place. But there's also league mandates and rules that you have to follow, before you can execute a trade. And, you have to, the partner, if you will, would have to go through an exhaustive process and meet the Rooney rules and all those qualifications. And before we could even start interviewing, we have to have an opening. And so it just prolongs our ability to get the next and best head coach in here.
What's the process going to be like in hiring a new coach, and who will be involved in that?
So we're going to, hit the ground running. Obviously this is, I'll give you a little, just to go back a little bit, I just finished meeting with our operations staff, support staff. I met with each assistant coach individually. Didn't want to do one big fell swoop of, talking to those guys. I wanted to give those guys individualized attention. And so that way they can ask questions that they might want to ask about themselves specifically. So make sure I made the time to go around and talk with each one of those guys. But we're going to run an exhaustive process to find our next head coach. And it's going to involve, a lot of people. Obviously I'll be a part of that. Miss Amy will be a part of that, and others. But we want to, make sure that we're getting the right people in here. I think it's going to be well documented, and I know you guys will, do your due diligence and, let us know what you think of every candidate, that comes out. But we also have to make sure that we're getting the right people in here, and people that everyone in this building, wants to come in and work for.
How did your collaboration determine that the group of offensive linemen that were on this team this year was sufficient to protect the quarterback and to create a run game?
No, I was obviously one of the voices of it, and I know that's an area where, we didn't play as well. And we need to continue to look for ways to improve that, and we will. And that'll be, a part of the process as well. But one thing I will say, about that offensive line position isn't always about the individual. It's about the sum of the parts. And we had a lot of injuries there. That was one of the positions that we had a lot of injuries. And so moving guys around, guys like Dylan Radins playing guard, playing tackle, moving guys around, we weren't able to create that cohesion, amongst the group. If you look at some of those great offensive lines back in the day, the Denver Broncos line back in the, in the late 90s, and, the Hogs in Washington, those guys had cohesion. Those guys worked well, together, and we just weren't able to keep the same 5 guys on the field consistently.
You think the group was good enough if it was healthy?
I think the group could have played better if it was healthy. And played together. Again, we're going to always look to add, competition. And, trust me, we didn't go into it feeling settled at any position. We're always looking to add. And, throughout the summer, we were able to add other pieces and work out players. Some guys we weren't able to agree to terms with that probably could have helped us. But through that, we were able to, find a Chris Hubbard and guys like that. So, the name of the game in this business is keeping the quarterback upright. And we didn't do a good enough job of doing that. And I definitely had a part in that. And so that will be one of our top tasks. Sorry.
And what are the 2 or 3 characteristics that you're going to look for in the next head coach?
In all fairness, I don't want to, go into that right now specifically. I promise you, at a given time when we're, up here, introducing the next head coach, I'll go into that. But I think right now it's best for us to keep that tight, amongst ourselves as we go through our process.
Is it though to make sure that you are getting a coach that is going to be able to work with what seems to be the future of your franchise and quarterback, Will Levis, to make sure that that is right more than anything, if this is the guy you're moving forward with as your quarterback?
So, I think all positions are important, and I get the nature of the quarterback position and what it means to not only our franchise but to the league as well. I share with you guys, before Levis's first start, and that became like a mantra, for me to tell him, I told him you don't have to be number 1, you just have to be number 1 of 11, and so we're not going to make our whole search about Will Levis. We have other guys on this team that are going to require coaching, they're going to require development. But, we will bring someone in here that's, sees it the same way and is more than willing to work with him.
It sounds like you were not present in the room when Amy talked to Coach Vrabel this morning of his firing. How much is that true, and how much say did you have in the final decision to part ways with Coach Vrabel?
No, I was not in the room when the news was delivered. And these things are ultimately, Miss Amy's decisions. I think organizationally structured, we both report to her. And, I know they've always had their one-on-one conversations, as I have, with her throughout the year and just throughout, my time being here. So no, I wasn't present. But that's just the way it is.
Did you have any input at all? And what's your understanding of why Mike was fired?
Well, like Miss Amy said in her statement, it's about her long-term vision, of what she wants the organization to be, and how she wants to move this organization, forward.
How did it work for nobody to have final say?
It worked fine. Because again, I think we've talked about this before. With this group, I see that as a ego driven part. That can create dissension, and that's the his guy, my guy, type of conversation. But again, there was never going to be a player brought in here that we weren't in agreement with.
Was it part of your agreement in the collaboration that Mike would face the music on everything difficult through the season, and that you would be as invisible as you were?
No, I think, to your point, because I know where we want to go with this, I was out front from the moment I got hired through the spring, throughout that whole process. And I just felt like, whether right or wrong, and it's something for me to learn from as we move forward, I just felt like the fall should have been about, the players and the coaches. Now, in terms of when it came to the KB trade and why I was not out front on that, Mike's had the relationship, with Kevin over the last, 6 years or whatever it's been. And we felt like it was best for him, to go out front and handle that.
By out front, you had a few press conferences. What's out front?
When you say I had a few press conferences, are we talking in the spring or the fall?
Spring and the fall.
No, I was out front in the spring because that's roster acquisition time. I don't particularly remember doing a press conference in the fall, but maybe I did one or two. Yeah, again, Paul, this is my first year on the job, and I've had thoughts and processes that I thought would work best moving forward. And I'm not here to say, again, like I said, it may not be right or wrong, and it's something that I need to evaluate moving forward and do a better job of connecting with the fan base.
Amy said in the video that she will name who has final say once the process is over. So is your understanding then that this is changing?
Yeah, it's a thing where it's an ego thing. You know what I mean? From my standpoint of saying I have to have it, it's whatever's best for this organization. And we're going to do that. And no matter if she says that I have final say, it'll be in a collaborative effort, with the head coach. Like I firmly believe, and I'll never deviate from it. We're not going to bring players in here that the coaches don't want to coach. No, go ahead. You got it.
A moment ago, you said the reason primarily he was fired was because of the vision that Miss Amy sees for this team. What was it about Mike that wasn't compatible with that vision?
It's her vision for the organization, not the team. The vision for her organization and how she wants things structured for that. Like I said, Miss Amy's she's made her statement and she's clarified her reasons, and we're here to support her.
You said that nobody is happy with the outcome of this season.
I'm sorry. Start it one more time.
You mentioned how nobody's happy with the outcome of this season. How much blame do you put on yourself for a 6-11 season?
Obviously, I'm one of the pieces in the talent acquisition part, so I wholeheartedly take a lot of the blame, and I have no problems with that. Again, I've been a part of losing seasons, throughout my career, but I've been a part of some really big winning seasons, specifically these last couple of years, and so that's not a part of my nature. I don't accept losing. You have the piece out there, well, hey, if you continue to lose, you get a higher draft position. I don't give a damn about a draft position. I'm here to win football games, and that's what I'll ultimately be judged on.
What kind of timeline ran on wanting to get a new coach in place?
Well, again, we have to go through league protocols and mandates that we have to meet as the people who will be new to the hiring process, from a DEI perspective that we have to go through. So once we, handle that part of the business, we'll get started immediately in terms of who we want to sit down with and, again, start immediately.
That they might make a change around.
You can speculate, you know what I mean? And, again, Mike and I, we had, private conversations yesterday as we met with players, as we met with the players in one-on-one. But, you guys do a good job of keeping everybody informed, you know what I mean? And so it's something that you have to, when you see it, you have to give it a thought about what it is. And, again, it's unfortunate that we're sitting here today, having that conversation. I'll be honest with you, man. It's, going down and meeting with the coaches one-on-one, and individually. Some of these guys that, they're damn good ball coaches, and we're having this conversation under this, under these circumstances. It's not easy. again, like I said, after I face you guys' questions, I have to go home and answer questions. Some of you guys have seen my kids around. My daughter had a close relationship with Mike, so I got to go home and answer these questions as well. So these days are never easy.
Did Mike want more control in the process, or at least a different structure set up?
We never had those conversations because Mike was a part of every meeting that we ever had in terms of talent acquisition. The way we did things last year, from the moment I came in, we had a free agency meeting with the scouts, and we were all in there. We had a meeting with the coaches. We were all in there saying,
Did we lose him? Did we lose Rand Carthon? Oh, it's frozen. Got it.
ball. It's football, and it's 74 car crashes, a day. Right. And Paul, that's a part that we have to figure out. We really do, and we have to spend the time to figure it out. Todd Torricelli and his staff, they do an excellent job of getting these guys back as soon as possible. And that is something, is because it's something that's persisted over the last 3 years. And so we have to, pay attention to that, and we will do that as we go through this process, with the next head coach.
How many staff members or coaches be retained? How do you go through that process of, maybe bringing anybody back?
So, like I spoke with the coaches today, my plan is to present our coaching staff, to the next head coach and give him the ability to interview any of the guys on our current staff if he sees so, and go from there. If he needs, advice or input from myself and from anyone here, we'll do that. But I have, a ton of respect for those guys, and, I kind of let you guys in on, the nature of my conversation with them. I let every coach know I appreciated the work that they put in developing our guys, and that I wouldn't stand in the way if between now and the time we hire the next head coach, if an opportunity came for them, to continue to feed their family. Again, would love for the next head coach to consider some of the guys, because we have some talented guys on this staff, but that'll be, at the discretion of the next head coach.
How much of the talent acquisition process that you and Mike did together last offseason was rooted in a multi-year vision? And with Mike no longer being a part of that process, how much does it pivot how your roster internally looks moving forward?
Yeah, you always, when you're acquiring specifically younger guys, draft guys and some young free agents, it's a long-term vision. We talk a lot about it in the draft room of, hey, this guy may not be ready year one, so that's a part of it. And depending on the scheme of the next head coach, things could pivot, drastically, and we could have a retool of the roster, which is, going to take some work. And so, we'll address that, when we get there.
Was the expectation coming into the season, knowing what you had on the roster, to contend for a division, or was there an expectation that it may take some time to do the full turnover that you guys were tasked with?
The expectation, no matter when you put guys out there on the field, is to win the ball game, no matter what. And that was our vision. And so, obviously it did not go that way for a variety of reasons, but the goal is to always win. I think, I know Mike's been a part of some championship teams, and we know what that looks like, and I have as well. But, we're going to, moving forward, we're going to work diligently to make sure that, we're going to put the best product out there on the field.
You talk about collaboration, Rand. Isn't it important ultimately to have somebody have the final say on things like the 53-man roster?
Again, I don't think, I understand that, and I can see where it works. But again, we all have to be aligned, on that. It's my job, it's Chad's job, it's A-Rob's job, it's all of our directors and scouting's job to identify the players that fit whatever it is we do schematically, and then present that to the coaches. And the coaches have to, want to coach this guy. And so it's, no matter who has the final say, it's going to have to be, a collection of talent that makes that work. When it comes down to, there's a difference, there's a difference of having 53-man control versus 48-man control on game day, and those are two totally different things. And so, the coaches know what they need, to execute their game plan on game day.
Why when you drafted an All-America left tackle, did the organization never look at him at left tackle as you struggled at left tackle?
Well, I think the goal for Peter was to be the left guard, and and moving him around moving him from a new position to a position that he hadn't practiced, I don't think it was advantageous in his development, and his growth, because he was learning a new position. And from him, he came in, he was an All-American, left tackle in college, but I think, and we talked about this with Peter the other day, at this league, they're bigger, longer players, and the length presents a problem. Now, moving forward, who knows? We may give Peter a look. Peter is a player that I would never bet against and say that he couldn't do something or he couldn't play. But we thought at the time when we drafted him that we could put Peter at guard and he'll be a mainstay.
There was never a time along the way while Tannehill and Levis were getting hurt that it made sense to take a look at him there, given the alternative?
We discussed it, but moving Peter to left guard, we'll have to put somebody at left tackle. Moving Peter to left tackle, we'll have to put somebody at left guard, and then now we're going back to that part about the cohesion. It was easier to replace one guy versus two.
You made a lot about the long-term vision. Do you feel like that's your vision?
It's ours. I don't own this organization, and we all have someone that we have to answer to, and we present our plan, to Miss Amy and let her know, how we want to move forward, and that's the way it's going to be.
What is that vision?
She talked about it, you talked about it, but no one's actually defined what it is.
I think at the right moment we'll define that vision, and that's going to come when we hire our next head coach, and we'll be able to give you guys more of a detailed description at that time.
It might not fit the vision today.
Well, again, this was about Miss Amy's long-term vision, and she stated in her statement how she felt.
You mentioned the teams playing now have a certain way of going about things. How does that way, as you understand it, compare to how you guys did things this year and what it will look like moving forward?
I'm not following the question.
The teams that are still playing, have that sort of collaborative way of going about things behind the scenes, right? I believe that's what you said. So how does that, your understanding of what they do, and I know you know one very well, compare to what you guys did this year and what you want to do from here?
No, I think, again, we're talking, different circumstances, just in terms of, a lot of those teams that are still playing, they've remained relatively healthy at key positions, and we just weren't able to do that. But again, moving forward, we gotta diagnose whatever that reason is and why, we haven't been able to keep, the same 11 guys out there consistently.
And continuing with that,
are you going to be leading the head coaching search, and if not, how is it going to work?
I know we, talked about this earlier. I will be one of the parts of it, and there will be, areas in which, I'll take more of an out front approach. But again, this is about the head coach. This is about the locker room, but this is about the organization. So it'll be, a few of us in there. I know there are a couple candidates that, I have, out there that'll be available. I have relationships with, and I want to be able to run an unbiased, process. And so that's going to require more people to be, in the room and a part of the process.
In terms of teams that are still playing, a lot of them have more wide open, more dynamic offenses built around a quarterback. Is that a direction that you would potentially like to go?
We'll see what the candidate pool list, presents. Obviously that's what everyone tunes in to see is, points being scored and big plays. And so we want to be a well-balanced football team, as we move forward. So however we get there is how we get there.
If there's a candidate you recommend, do you expect Amy to accept the recommendation?
Again, it's a vote, right? So we're going to, how many ever people we decide to interview, we're going to interview. And I'm sure, when it comes down to it, everyone will speak their piece about, who they like. And, we're all going to listen to each other and figure out who's best for us.
You'll be taking part in a coaching search, and you could have final roster say, what makes you feel prepared to take on that larger role?
I was thinking about this, as we, move forward. Of course, I've never had to run or be a part of an interview search or interview a head coach. I've never done it, but then I lean on my experiences in growing up, in a household raised by a coach, and a lot of the coaches that I've been around, I've, reached out to, some of my, friends around the league. Some are head coaches, some are GMs, for advice, already. And so I'll lean on those, those guys to help me in areas where I'm not experienced.
What did you think about the degree of player development you saw over the season you were here?
I'm encouraged. From, you look at guys, you look at, Peter, like we talked about before, he's never played guard before, where he lost significant weight and he, worked his tail off to get back, to do that. So he was still kind of developing and growing. These guys, showed improvement. Look at Colton Dow, they have the division defined. We have it defined, and we've had, I've been on the phone ever since, the decision was made, and it's obviously been a lot going on and it's been hectic, but the vision is defined. It's just, it'll be a time for us to roll that out.
Can't share that vision?
No,
with your fan base?
it's not the time. It's not the time to share that vision today. Because I think as we go through this process, we need to make sure that we have the right person aligned with that, and why we hired that person will fit that vision.
That's good.
Man, how do you balance? How do you balance knowing the free agency stuff you got to deal with the players and now as coaches? How do you make all that work at the same time?
Sleepless nights. I have to, go by the Target and get a pillow and a blanket and sleep in my office and do whatever I need to do my part to help, usher this organization forward.
Why is the scouting staff that was below John Robinson and helped in part lead to the roster problems that you have now, the right scouting staff to help you rebuild the roster?
Well, again, with everything, with this change, we got to continue to look at, at our scouting staff and what changes may or may not need to be made there. One thing, when I was hired, I didn't know any of these guys when I came in, and I wanted to give them a chance to prove themselves because I have never worked with them, and I didn't want to just come in and just gut the place and have to start over and do all of that. And so we'll continue to, evaluate all phases of the organization. Like we have to get it right, and I'm confident that we will.
Things with relationship building with the new head coach that you're going to want to do differently than you did with Mike, or the regrets, I guess, that you want to address?
No, I don't have any regrets. I think relationship building is all about you as an individual and how you do those. And, I feel like with who I am as a person, like my life has been built on relationships and my ability to create and establish relationships with people. So I will continue with the same approach, that I've always had. And I'm the type of person that, we're gonna have conversations. Sometimes they're gonna be uncomfortable, but the best way to get on the other side is maybe having a 20 or 30 minute uncomfortable conversation. So I'm never gonna put myself above anybody. I'm gonna always make myself available, to whoever that next person is. But in terms of how I communicate and how I go about my life, I'm not changing that. Thank you.
There you go. That's General Manager Rand Carthon, his press conference, your reaction. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. I got mine. That's next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
You talked about the season and being philosophically aligned and all, but in that regard, a couple of big moves were made in season. The switch from Tannehill to Levis at quarterback, the firing of Craig Aukerman. Were those unanimous decisions by the organization at the time?
Yes, every decision that we made was unanimous. Mike and I, we speak every morning, whether I come to his office or he comes to my office, and we talk about the task in hand for the day. When we got to the point of making the move from Ryan, at that time when we made the initial switch, Ryan was injured. And that was about, now we get to see what Levis can do. And Levis went out and he played well. I think had everybody, in this room and our fan base excited about what was to come. And so we decided to make the decision to, move forward and see what that's going to look like in the future in his development.
Every decision was unanimous, according to Rand Carthon. So we'll get to your thoughts, 615-737-1025. But my thoughts get to go first here on that Rand Carthon press conference. The way I do this when I'm not at a press conference and I'm listening is I write down what they say in one color, and then I write my reaction in another color. So I'm just going to go through all my reaction of all the different things. First, he says, no issues between him and Vrabel. What? So then why is Vrabel fired? Don't think we failed. The ball didn't bounce our way, said Rand Carthon. Seriously? This is not T-ball. Like, this is the NFL. The ball didn't bounce your way because Andre Dillard couldn't block his man, and he sacked your quarterback, and everybody freaking saw it. The ball didn't bounce your way. Like, dude, you're the GM. The ball didn't bounce your way. We all watched this year. Then he was asked about, the decision to rebuild, not rebuild, were there, issue there. And he brought up the injuries. So the injuries were the problem this year. Again, if the injuries were the problem, then why did Mike Vrabel get fired? Every time asked about the decision, he deferred to Amy, who made the decision. Felt kind of like a cop-out, especially if every answer or every decision was unanimous. Which I wrote in my notes. That is not possible. It is not possible over the course of a year for every decision for an NFL team to be unanimous. So when you say that, what you're telling me is that you are lying. That is what you're telling me. You are saying, I'm lying. That's what it is. Let's see. Question on Levis. He said might not be number one, but be one of 11. And I actually thought that was a good answer because, as I said, I don't want them to tie the next coach to Will Levis. I want them to hopefully be able to maximize Will Levis, but the new coach might not like Will Levis, so I didn't mind that one. I thought it was pretty good. Part of agreement for him to be impossible. I don't know what I put on that one. I'll have to go back and listen to that one question. How much of a talent acquisition was him and Mike? And he talked about retooling the roster, to which I said, whoa now, retooling the roster. And then he said the expectation is to win. And I thought, don't do this to yourself. Don't tell these fans that you're going to win. If you look at your roster and you think, hey, we're going to have to retool this thing. So he says retool the roster in one answer. The next answer, he says the expectation is to win. Be honest with the freaking fans, buddy. That would be the thing that I think screwed Vrabel over, is that Vrabel couldn't be honest with the fans and say, hey, we just, we screwed up on the offensive line, didn't show any humility. Collaboration for the offensive line. We didn't play as well, and then he went to injuries. Okay. Finally, he was asked about the offensive line, and he said the group could have played better, and I had a part in it, to which I wrote, thank you for finally saying I had a part in this disaster. He was asked about his recommendation to Amy, and he said that his recommendation for the next coach is a quote-unquote vote. So it is a democracy over at St. Thomas Sports Park. Dude, you're the GM. It's a vote. That's why they pay you more money than the other guys who supposedly have votes. He said he was encouraged by player development, which, again, if you're encouraged by the player development, he used Skoronski, by the way, as an example. Skoronski, Levis, and Wiley, why fire the coach? If the reason you lost is because the ball doesn't bounce your way and there's injuries, and yet you and the coach see eye to eye on everything, and you felt like you guys are in lockstep and you were encouraged by his player development, why fire the coach? Asked about to define his vision, he and Amy's shared vision for the organization. Rand said they will roll it out soon, but won't roll it out now. What's your vision? That's a secret. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Rand said that he has no regrets as far as how he handled things with Vrabel. Just ask this question. Why did everything have to be a freaking lie? Why was there nothing? And I just listened to 35 minutes or however long that was, and I'm not sure I have any insight at all. And I think what this is I think Rand is great at passing the buck. At basically saying, oh, yeah, our ball didn't go our way this week. That's why we lost the game. And, we're all trying over here. I mean, if there were issues between you and Vrabel, now's the time to say it. And it's obvious there were. I bet Vrabel listened to that press conference and thought, thank God I'm not there anymore. Your reaction is next. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. Let's talk about Twice Daily. That will make me much happy after listening to that press conference. Make me much happier. Buy any made-to-order Italian sub and use your rewards app to get entered to win a chance to go to Italy, a trip to Italy from Twice Daily. Every sub is a chance to win, but mobile-ordered Italian subs count as 2 times the entry. Visit twicedaily.com/sweepstakes for more info. Download the Twice Daily app today and join their loyalty program to unlock special discount savings and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily, where you'll earn points and save money with every visit. Get what you crave at Twice Daily. Made to order sandwiches, bakery, breakfast, lunch and dinner, fresh items made to go, hot drink, cold drink, you name it, stop by the beer cave to unwind with a cold one. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. Twice Daily, fresh all day.
You mentioned how nobody's happy with the outcome of this season. How much blame do you put on yourself for a 6-11 season?
I mean, obviously, I'm one of the pieces in the talent acquisition part, so I wholeheartedly take a lot of the blame, and I have no problems with that. Again, I've been a part of losing seasons, throughout my career, but I've been a part of some really big winning seasons, specifically these last couple of years, and so that's not a part of my nature. I don't accept losing. You have the piece out there, well, hey, if you continue to lose, you get a higher draft position. I don't give a damn about a draft position. I'm here to win football games, and that's what I'll ultimately be judged on.
There you go. That was probably the best answer he gave during that press conference. Let's go to your phones. Brad is up next here on the program. Thank you for holding and waiting. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say that press conference was a bit alarming. I mean, the biggest thing that stood out was he seemed really unprepared to answer the kind of questioning that you would expect that you would have to answer when you make a move like this. And I'm sure that, there's going to be a lot of stones thrown at Rand, and there's just a lot of deserving ones. But, man, Amy, what in the world? It's really starting to feel like she's making some pretty unhinged decisions. And, she mentioned in her press conference or interview with Mike that this wasn't an overnight decision, that it's been coming to this for a long time. Then if it's been coming to this for a long time, I would expect that you'd have your team a little bit more prepared to handle the kind of press conference that we had right there, because it looked like Rand just went out with not very much to go with, and he was just getting peppered left and right. So I'm just wondering, Amy's starting to really concern me that she might be the one that's really incompetent by, making the decisions that she's making. So I'll hang up and listen, but I'm really starting to really be concerned about the top of the organization over there.
So I will address kind of the different things here. Thank you for your call, Brad. I mean, look, ownership is ownership, right? They're not football people. And I told you guys when I found out that John Robinson, that his firing was not an HR thing, that it was not stealing from the office, sexually harassing somebody at work, the things that get you fired right away. I was like, oh, no. Because it's what the dumb organizations do. And I didn't think the Titans were the dumb organizations. Well, here you are. And I told Caroline the Monday after the Eagles game, I said, that game in more unstable organizations gets a coach fired. I didn't think it was getting the GM fired in this organization because of the respect that I had for the organization and the way they did things. But it's been like this. All this stuff's stupid. It's been this way for the last year and a month, right? The collaboration and, nobody has final say. And, this guy never talks to the media. And I was shocked when he said, no, it wasn't an agreement between me and Mike. Just felt like Mike would be better off doing the press conference after Byard got traded. What? Let's go to James, who's up next here on our program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, James?
What's up, man? I have always given you the utmost credit for when you love, and when you hate, you hate. You act like you're in middle school, bro. Let me ask you this. If a guy wears a suit and tie to work, why in the hell should he wear a Titans hat to work?
But he doesn't wear a suit and a tie to work.
If he doesn't wear a jersey. Why should he wear a freaking tight? Does Pepsi's president or GM wear a damn Pepsi hat to work? No. But what happened, I think, is Mike Vrabel walked in the door with his collars and Amy is Bud's daughter. It just wasn't going to work.
James, what does this have to do with the press conference? Because that's not what Rand Carthon said happened.
No. That's why he don't have any information. The meeting, Mike Vrabel walked in there and put his cojones on the table, and she sniffed him.
Your guess is as good as mine, James. Thank you for your call. Your guess is as good as mine. I guess we'll never know. Although Diana Rossini will be joining Robbie and Joe tomorrow at 7:30. So if anybody knows Vrabel's side of the story, it's probably going to be Diana tomorrow at 7:30. If I had to guess. All right, more of your phones next, 615-737-1025. And I hope the Rand Carthon press conference for you backed up something I have been preaching We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Bridgestone Arena, Preds and Ducks tonight, 7 o'clock, pregame in less than an hour. John McClain will join us in less than 30 minutes. I assume many of you heard the Ran Carthon press conference an hour ago. By my count, 49 questions. And I kept writing in my notes things like BS or seriously, ? Or injuries. Asked about rebuilding or not rebuilding. He talked about with injuries, it's hard. Injuries? ? Amy spoke to her decision. I wrote, Every decision was unanimous. I wrote, that's not possible. It was just more bull crap after more bull crap. And let me say this. I understand not everybody sees things the way that I see them. I understand that. And it's been very hard for me to process that the way that I say something or the way that I do something, how that might make somebody else feel. I anticipate, and I think a lot of us do this, we anticipate how that person will feel, and then we get it wrong. So I don't want to assume how you guys felt. But I want to ask this question, which is, a couple of weeks ago when I told you it's time to clean house. It's time to move on from the coach. It's time to move on from the general manager. He's been in there for a year. In 1 year's time, I have not seen really anything that encourages me that this guy's got a freaking clue. And I told you about my own experiences. I talked about what I've heard inside the building. Again, and I've said the line, but Ran likes to play GM more than he likes to be GM is what somebody inside the building told me. It's obvious there were some issues with Mike Vrabel in the hierarchy of the organization. And what's the hierarchy of the organization? So the question I have is this. Did anybody listen to that press conference and walk away from it and think, man, maybe Jared was right about time to clean house? A lot of you guys are talking about Amy, and I get that. But there's no owner in the NFL who I'm going to say, that is a great football person right there. I know that. You know that. Most of them are bad in terms of ownership groups and owners and things like that when it comes to making football decisions. Some of them aren't, but most of them are. But ever since Amy fired John Robinson, and I'm not saying John Robinson's job shouldn't have been at least being discussed at the end of the season after everything played out and whatnot. But at that point in time, when they fired John Robinson and they went and hired some guy Mike Vrabel didn't know for a shotgun marriage of collaboration because it was all John's fault then, I said in the middle of this season, when they got worse, I'm like, time for a redo. Time to start over. Time to blow it up. People say, you can't do that with the general manager after 1 year. And I keep asking people, even people that know some of the inside stories, that are like, I don't know if they can fire a GM after 1 year. And I'm like, if this were your team and you knew you had to tear the Band-Aid off, Amy knows it. She told Mike Keith that basically today. She knows that the last 2 years have been bad. She knows the way things are trending is not good. She knows they need a reset. But if this were your team and you had seen 1 year and that guy proved to you that, hey, he can't do this, why would you keep him in that spot? And I wonder if that press conference for you guys was a moment where it was like, oh, holy crap, this thing might be incompetent here. Like this collaboration, this process, this everything else. Because the only hope I have as a Tennessee Titan fan, which I am, is that the next head coach that they hire is so smart and is so on top of it and is so put together, like is so good that he can run the whole organization. Because that's the only way with Ran Carthon as general manager that this team's going to sniff any success. It was a disaster of a press conference. It was the kind of press conference that if the owner wasn't kind of sure about Ran and then watched the press conference, I think the owner would want to turn around and fire Ran. And I don't know how Ran could be so unprepared for a press conference this way blaming injuries and the way the ball bounced and, saying the player development was good and that the assistant coaches are good. And I don't know how he could have been so unprepared for that press conference because they've got great PR people over there. Great PR people. And he talked to all of us like we're stupid. Ball didn't bounce our way. Yet the ball happens to not bounce your way when your left tackle can't block. So that's how, I don't know how you guys felt about it. Maybe I'm biased because I've wanted to clean house, but my goodness, I can't get over that press conference. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let's go to Mick, who is up next here on our program. Has been waiting patiently. What's up, Mick?
Hi, hey, how you doing? Glad
Good.
to take the call. So listen, here's my read on things. When she hired Rand, she should have fired Vrabel. Rand is trying, obviously, to recreate what the Niners had, and there is a certain kind of collaboration from the GM and the coach that has to be there to make it all work. So this is like a reset. I don't know if Rand's going to be the guy long term, but I think he's going to try to adopt the practices the Niners have done. I think he's going to be looking at the offensive coordinator from Houston, probably from Miami. You're going to try to see some kind of coaching tree that he's going to tap in from his own experience. But that's what I think happened here this year. The owner got in the middle. Vrabel clearly was passively aggressive, saying, yeah, I'll go along with that decision, when in fact he was never going along with most of the choices that were made.
So I can't agree one way or disagree. Thank you, Mick. About, Vrabel, he was against it and he didn't like this and he didn't like, when nobody, Rand said there were no issues at all between him and Mike. Said they shared the same vision. Every decision was unanimous. So I don't know how I can go off of that. This is what I think. Rand Carthon's a BSer. And I think Mike Vrabel was tired of the BS. Now, I think Mike Vrabel's got plenty of BS too, and I'm tired of that. But that's what I think really happened here, but we'll never know because they'll never tell us because they never say anything anymore. Amy sits down with Mike Keith. That's that. And then Rand holds a press conference and blames the ball not being round. Let's go to Chris, who's up next on our program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Chris?
Hey, Jared. I just, I'm a passionate Titans fan, just like you and probably the rest of your listeners. But and I don't want to really comment on Rand Carthon. I want to focus on Amy and her short tenure as the owner. So many things have to fall into place for a franchise to win a championship. And you need a little bit of luck, like the Music City Miracle sometimes. But, the one thing that we know for sure about Amy, even though we know there's, like you said, a lot of BS that comes out of there, she wants to win. And she's trying to find the right combination. She actually had it for a short while with Vrabel and J-Rob. They were within striking distance. They were contenders. But then the window abruptly closed, and the wheels are starting to come off.
So what's the point?
She desperately wants to win, and
so does everybody.
Jared.
The moron owners want to win. The Haslam in Cleveland wants to win.
She has to find the right combination.
Right. And this combination was a disaster from the start. Thank you, Chris. And if they let Rand Carthon pick a coach, it's going to be equally as disastrous as that last press conference was. That's the problem. You're sitting there telling me, hey, Amy wants to win. Everybody wants to win. Everybody. That is the one thing when Rand Carthon said every decision was unanimous. I tell you what, it was unanimous that they wanted to win. Every single one of them. Don't give me Amy Adams Strunk wanted to win. My basketball program, Louisville, they got the worst coach in the history of college basketball in Kenny Payne. I don't question whether or not Kenny Payne wants to win. He's just incapable of doing it. So she had the good collaboration there with Robinson and Vrabel, and then it fell off. Well, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. What you can do is you can start over, which is what I think they need to do. We're right back to your phones next. 615-737-1025. Plus, I think a lot of people are mad, even after that press conference, about the Titans needing to clean house. I don't know. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Rand, you said when at the draft or when you were introduced that your number one thing was to serve Mike. Given today's developments, did you fail at that?
I don't think we failed. I just think, one of the things Mike's always says is that the ball isn't round, so you don't know how it's going to bounce. And I don't think the ball bounced our way. We had 7 one-score losses this year, so we were in games, just the ball didn't bounce our way. I wouldn't consider it a failure, but by no means, were we happy with the results. And that's just something we've talked about, privately and as a group over the last couple months of, how do we get this thing right and how do we get this thing, in the right direction. So I wouldn't call it a failure, but it's definitely not up to the standard.
The ball just didn't bounce our way. That was what Rand Carthon said. Ball didn't bounce our way. Bunch of one-score games we lost. I mean, that's what Mike always says. The guy we just fired him? Yeah, that's what he always says. He's right. Justin in Greenbrier in the text line says, Jared, my initial reaction was surprised, but this one, I want to set this up correctly. This is a text from 216 from Justin in Greenbrier who texted back in at 513. So here's 216. Jared, my initial reaction was surprised but not shocked. The apprehension about if I trust the owner and the group to get this hire right and put this team back on a winning path exists. I am just not sure I trust them, and I don't know anything about Rand Carthon, even with him being with the team for a season. 513. Yeah, that was a nightmare. Maybe she'll grow a brain overnight and fire that guy. He just doesn't seem to have the goods to be general manager. So at 216, he's like, I didn't know anything about him, and so I don't know if I trust him. And at 513, he's like, fire him, which I do kind of laugh at a little bit. We got loaded phones, and we're to him because John McClain is with us in 10 minutes. Let's go Tyron in Brentwood, who is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling and waiting. Tyron, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a nightmare. This guy's a bozo the clown GM, too. I mean, he was ill-prepared. I mean, he didn't know what to say, what to do. I mean, that was just so lame. And I got to tell you, as much as I've harped on Vrabel, it was time for him to go. But, boy, my God, he's got to be doing cartwheels and backflips because he actually went in yesterday, as you well reported, with the demands. And, he got fired, which is what he wanted all along.
Sure.
And now he'll be the head coach of the Patriots in the next week or so, I guess. So, I mean, they all got what they wanted in him, but, yeah, this guy's got to go or this team is in deep trouble. I have to believe, and I'm probably wrong because I don't know much about Amy, but she has to have a strong-headed mind coach in line, like you said, that can overcome his, lack thereof. Because if he's going to pick the coach, they're going to continue to suck. Bad day for the Titans. The worst get worse. And my Lord, this guy blows. Are you kidding me? This guy blows.
Thank you. Thank you for those words. Billy is up next here on the and I don't disagree with anything Tyron said. I bet you Vrabel listened to that press conference. And I bet you Vrabel was like, I tried to tell him. And that's how I feel. I've been trying to tell you guys for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, ever since that Texans lost to the JV Tex. I clean house, start over. Enough's enough. And I told you guys on Friday, I said, I either want them both back or I want them both gone. I'd rather have them both gone, but I'd take one or the other because the last thing I want is Rand Carthon hiring a coach, giving a 6-year contract, and then next year it'll be Rand's fault. They'll fire him, and then you get a coach, and it's like you're constantly chasing the rabbit there. Billy is up next here on our program. Billy, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Jared. I was pro-fire Vrabel, but boy, after listening to that press conference, all I could think was there's zero chance they get the next guy right. This guy is in over his head. You called it all along. What'd you say? He wants to act like GM as opposed to be GM. I'm just worried we're in for another top 3 draft pick next year. So thanks for your time, buddy.
Yep, thank you, Billy. And again, the problem is you get that top 3 draft pick next year with a bozo coach because the GM hires the bozo coach. Now what are you going to do? I mean, traditionally, the teams that pick at the top of the draft are kind of the same teams almost every year. The Texans finally found some direction, and they stopped preying on how to get better, and they actually decided to get smart people to get better, and look at them. So, I mean, look, my favorite was when they asked him for his vision, and he said he wouldn't show his long-term vision. Oh, my God. It's like he just regurgitates the same 3 talking points, and then once he's done with those 3 talking points, he tries to regurgitate the 3 same talking points again, except that for everybody else, it's like, all right, we've already heard this. We need some new material, and he doesn't have it. Let's go to Steve, who's up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. What's up, Steve?
Hey, what's up, Jared? Man, we in bad shape. I mean, at the beginning of the season, we said Rand Carthon sounded like he was blowing smoke, and man, they might as well call him Snoop Dogg because he's still blowing smoke. There's absolutely no way he's experienced enough to turn this roster over to be effective next season, man. We back in Wisdom Hunt County, my friend.
I agree.
Great show. It's like going to church and let the choir say amen. I'm out.
Yeah. I said, good call, Steve. I said on Twitter, the Titans need to clean house after that Rand Carthon press conference, and all these people are like, what? What are you talking about? And I think those might be like the 4 people on Twitter, because I think everybody else heard that press conference and thought. And I knew that there was a chance that press conference was going to be a disaster, because I thought that, Rand was in over his head. But I didn't think it'd be that bad. I mean, the fact that the third thing was, Mike Vrabel, the guy we just fired, says that the ball isn't round, so it doesn't bounce that way, and the ball didn't bounce. Oh, no. Jed is up next here on Stillman and Company. Jed, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Jared. I would just, after seeing that press conference, I'd just like to call a spade a spade. He was hired as a DEI hire, and he will hire somebody else that'll be a terrible coach that'll be a DEI hire. Wait and see. This franchise is done.
I don't think that's fair. I think it's also kind of racist when you say something like that, and I don't like it. I mean, I know Amy Adams Strunk, and I just don't think – look, I mean, I've worked for people before that at first I met them, and I was like, man, I think this person, I can work with this person. And then after 3 months, I'm like, oh, my God, this person's an idiot. And I think we've all worked with people like that. Now, I came away from the first Rand Carthon press conference, and I thought, hey, I like Guy. This guy might have the goods. Might not, I don't know. But then after a little bit, I was like, okay, this guy, this is not. Trent is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Trent?
Hey, Jared. I will say I'm a little disappointed. I'm born and raised in Nashville. I've seen the almost highest of highs and the very lowest of lows with this team. I really thought Mike Vrabel deserved one more year, and now just hearing this press conference, it's a train wreck. Are we at the point where we should be questioning Amy Adams Strunk's ownership? And realistically,
the problem with that, though, is that there's nothing that you can do about it.
Right. Well, do you think, though, like you said yesterday, my favorite word to describe this team is incompetence, and it's time for a president of football operations, because I think Amy just hears what she hears from a strong-minded person that seems good up front, and then the BS kicks in, and here we are right back at square one.
I think, and this is much larger, thank you, Trent. I think that the issue here is that Amy Adams Strunk wanted somebody who wasn't what the problems John Robinson that she saw had were. I don't know if that made any sense. The things that bothered her about John Robinson, she didn't want in the next person, which is why she has hammered collaboration. Because at first, Robinson was collaborative. Hey, Blake Bedingfield, what do you think? Should we take Derrick Henry? Whereas at the end, it was people on Robinson's staff were worried they were, going to get, that they didn't want to draft Caleb Farley either. And it was like, nope, I'm the football czar. And she's like, I don't want that. And I get that. I understand that. But I also don't, I got to have somebody who knows football. I got to have somebody that knows what they're doing. I got to have somebody that can lead an organization. I have to have somebody that can be accountable and still respect those who work above them and who work below them. And Rand just kind of, he just kind of says the things that they want to hear. And I don't think that works. 615-737-1025. We will get back into your phones, but first, John McClain will join us next. Let's get John's reaction, what he's hearing around the league about the Titans' decision to move off of Vrabel. And then my number one choice for head coach, my prayer for the Titans organization is that Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator of the Texans, can save them the way Kyle Shanahan runs the 49ers. That is the only prayer I feel like I have. Well, John knows Bobby Slowick and all the other potential coaches out there. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Ian, am I supposed to tell the fine folks out there about, FanDuel Sportsbook? That's my official sportsbook app. As good as the regular season is, there is nothing like NFL Super Wildcard Weekend. 6 games in 3 days. And for those teams, it is win or go home. But you'll always have a spot in the playoffs with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. Let me say this. I feel really good about Tampa Bay at home, which, again, it's Baker Mayfield, but the Eagles look like trash. And I don't see any way the Dolphins go to frigid Kansas City and win a game there. So, if you want to follow my picks, go to FanDuel right now. New customers get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/JGM to join today. That's FanDuel.com/JGM and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 and over in present Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit is required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Stillman and Company, again, the big news today. Mike Vrabel outran Carthon with a press conference, saying no issues between him and Vrabel, and doesn't think that they failed. The ball just didn't bounce their way this year, and they just had injuries. Every decision they made was unanimous. He was encouraged by the player development. So I'm not exactly sure after the Rand Carthon press conference why they fired Mike Vrabel, but apparently they did. John McClain joins us now. There is nobody that has a feel for almost every single party involved in this more than John McClain. So, John, let's start with you. And he will be, by the way, on Chase and Big Joe tomorrow at 9:30. John, let's start with this. Your reaction today when you saw that the Titans were actually making the move on Mike Vrabel?
Despite all the rumors, Jared, I thought Mike was not going anywhere, and I was stunned. And all the cheering you could hear is from Houston, Jacksonville, and Indianapolis, because those teams and those fans know Vrabel's a hell of a coach who won't have any trouble getting another job. And I understand Rand Carthon has to say that. He's not going to tell the media, oh, yeah, Mike and I had problems on personnel. I got somebody I want to hire that I used to work with, like Bobby Sloak of the Texans for all those years with the 49ers. And every GM that comes in has a list of coaches and assistants who he wants to hire if he gets the opportunity and it doesn't work out. So he's going to get to make the decision. Amy Adams Strunk will sign off on it, but boy, there's a lot of people around the NFL shaking their heads. And I'll tell you something that may be in the minority, and you guys may disagree, and a lot of your listeners. I followed Vrabel's career closely because he was here before he went there. And I thought this season, based on what he had to work with the Levis as a rookie and hurt a lot, with the worst offensive line I've seen because of injuries, one receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, no replacement for A.J. Brown, Jeffrey Simmons out, Kevin Byard gone, and everything that happened injury-wise, and to lose so many close games like the Texans game on a 50-yard, 4-yard field goal with no time left in overtime, I thought he did a better job coaching this season than he did 2 seasons ago when he was voted Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I do disagree with that, but to your point, I mean, I think one of the biggest problems with the Titans is that there was no accountability during the year of how they ended up with that terrible offensive line. And I can't believe that it was all just Vrabel. I do think it's time for a change, but I think this is just me, John, time for a complete cleaning of the house. Rand Carthon in the first year done a lot of questionable stuff, not like roster stuff, just things that we hear internally. And I guess to that point, the only prayer I have, John, of the Titans not going through a rough 3-4 year period in front of them is if they can hire a guy like Bobby Slowick and they can give him the entire organization the way Kyle Shanahan has the organization in San Francisco. And if he's smart enough or able enough to be able to guide them through where they are right now, you know Slowick better than we do. He's in Houston. Is he or anybody else capable of doing that?
Well, I'm sure there's somebody is, but you know Rand Carthon wants to have final say on personnel. Like here, D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio work closely together, but Caserio has in his contract he has final say. And D'Amico Ryans said, I need an experienced personnel man when I become a head coach. 2 years ago, he had an interview, and he said, I need another season of calling defenses and his experience as a coordinator. That happened with Ben Johnson from the Lions last year. He interviewed here, said, I need another one. Kevin O'Connell of Minnesota. So I'm not saying Bobby Slowick wouldn't come after one season as a offensive coordinator and play caller, but I could see him coming back. But he's going to need an experienced personnel man. And Rand Carthon, while he hadn't been a GM for 1 year, has been working in personnel at one of the best franchises in the league. And Kyle Shanahan has it in his contract that he has final say on all personnel. So it's a tricky deal when you have two guys that don't have a lot of experience. But Carthon, he's won this power play. Amy Adams Strunk doesn't make decisions like that on her own. She consults people, And if she's got a GM, she's going to talk to the GM. I don't know who else in the organization she talks to, but she's got to talk to more than one person. So now they start from a clean slate, and how well they can build, I'll tell you this, depends on how well Will Levis develops. And the new head coach better like Will Levis. Otherwise, you're back looking for another quarterback. And if the new coach doesn't like Levis, you can't force him to take him. And but hopefully he will.
John McClain is with us on the program. John, there's a lot of talk about the Titans not looking to trade Mike Vrabel. Now, the team would have to go by the interviewing external minority candidates. They'd have to have another team that would be willing to trade for Vrabel, and that team would have to interview those external minority candidates, and then they would still have to want Vrabel. Then they'd have to work out trade compensation, and then the Titans might be further behind the rest of the teams that have fired their head coaches that are already going out and requesting permission to interview. To that point, do you think that they made the right decision not waiting to try to trade Vrabel, or do you understand the decision, or what do you make of it?
Well, first of all, a head coach has to agree to be traded. It's not like a player. And so Vrabel may say, no, I'm not going to go there. Now, the only time I heard about him being traded was trying to trade him to New England, and New England still has the head coach as of right now. So you can't call Bob Kraft and say, hey, you want to trade for Mike Vrabel? Well, he's still got a coach. That'd be illegal. That'd be against the rules. So what if he takes another week or two? There is a lot of trouble when it goes into trading a head coach. The last team that did it successfully, and they paid dearly, was John Gruden. Cost 2 1s, 2 2s, and $8 million. And they won the Super Bowl with Gruden, so everybody was happy to give up all that compensation. Nobody's ever going to require that compensation again. When Bill Belichick backed out on his Jets deal to go to New England, that's because Bob Kraft wanted to stick it to Bill Parcells, and the commissioner got involved, and they had to give up draft choices for him. And, of course, that worked out very well. But usually in that situation, there's got to be some bad blood between a head coach and an owner, and they find a trade partner. And I don't think there's any trade partners because nobody's going to give up draft choices for Mike Vrabel, knowing if they call you and ask you want to make a trade, that's like with a player. Would you give us a pick?
You saw the Texans turn it around the way they did with the hiring of D'Amico Ryans and then the selecting of C.J. Stroud. How far away are the Titans? Like when they go out there and they try to pitch this job to candidates, I know the Texans had 2 one-and-dones in a row. I have talked to people inside the league that have told me that is not an attractive job, the Titans. And yet, I know D'Amico had played at Houston and all of that, but it seems like they can take a non-attractive job and make it attractive pretty quickly. Do you think that other people will look at this and say that it is not an attractive job with the Titans, or it is an attractive job with the Titans?
No, I've never heard anybody say that. You know, got a great city, you got a great stadium coming, you got a basically new practice facility, and the key is Rand Cawthorn's a first-time general manager. And so it's a good job. The team's bad, and most of how bad they were was because of the injuries. I'll tell you something very interesting, Jared. When the Texans played the Colts to make the playoffs, the Colts said they were in the best physical condition since early in the season. Texans are in terrible physical condition, just like the Titans, but they still won the game. So injuries play so much into it. You know, they need Burks to develop in his third season the way Nico Collins has. Nico was hurt most of his first 2 years, and now he sees money on an extension, so he's been great. And then you got to hit a home run with a quarterback, and you can't keep having all those injuries. If they had been able to keep their offensive line, whatever it was they wanted, and I'm not sure what it is they wanted, but if they'd been able to keep the 5 they want relatively healthy, no telling what Derrick Henry would have done. You know, and plus losing Ryan Tannehill turned out to be good because you got a rookie you traded up for. You got to see if he can play. And I don't know what they think about Levis, but a new coach is going to have different opinions. He's going to have a different scheme, a different mindset, but he's got to hire good staff, not his friends. I remember one time Bill O'Brien told me something that was actually true. When he said after his first year, he said a new coach's worst staff is his first one because he's hiring his friends. And if he can't figure that out and start making moves after that first year, he's doomed.
John McClain, the guru, as always. John, thank you for making time for us today.
Jared, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Nah, he's the best. John McClain, he'll be on Chasing Big Joe tomorrow at 9:30. And, boy, there's a lot of banking on Rand Carthon in that. Even when it was Bobby Slowick, he's like, I don't know, you might need a little bit more experienced personnel man. And I thought, oh, no, not after that press conference. Bradley is up next here on our program. Has been waiting patiently. Thank you for calling. What's up, Bradley?
Jared, at times I miss Floyd and this reason to keep you in check, because I just look at Rand is just starting. And if you were good as you were, you're great on the air, but you weren't great year one.
Yeah, it was.
And the guy's learning. What? Oh, come on, man.
Let me tell you this right now. I've thought about this a lot.
You say Floyd was great his year one. I mean, I'm just saying Rand has put in good players. He has put in good players. That's his job. He's put in he's taken a couple of gambles, but he's taken good players like Brunskill. He's got Alshair, who's had more tackles than any.
We got Brunskill
in our history.
We got Brunskill. Oh, yes.
You were looking for an all-pro team, and that's not happening, Jared.
No, I was looking for a team that could make the playoffs.
He is not breaking the bank on contracts. So the guy is doing his job. So give him a break. The guy told you on stage, I'm learning.
I don't understand this whole idea. Bradley, thank you for the call. I agree with the idea that somebody learns more in year two than they do year one, which is why when it comes to hiring a general manager, I would, which is not in vogue in the NFL. I would interview people that have been general managers before, and I'd ask them, where'd you mess up? Like, where did you screw up? I mean, even with this, I'd interview Arthur Smith, and I know you got, Arthur Smith in Atlanta. He was, like, look, we know Arthur Smith's smart. We know Arthur Smith is a good coach. But more importantly, I want to know, where'd you screw up with the quarterback? Where? Not, what, like, did you screw up with the quarterback? I know the answer there. Where did you screw up? Why did it happen the way it happened? I want to know that. But there are people they put on the air that right away I'm like, oh, my God, I don't understand how anybody could put this person on the air. There's a radio station that had a guy that was a host, and I thought he was fine, and then they replaced him with a guy who I think is like a backup host. I'm like, where did they get this idea from? And that guy might get a little bit better, but at the end of the day, he's always going to be a backup host. And so from day one, that wasn't me. I mean, I'm just going to tell you that right now. Was I as good as I think I am now? Probably not. But as far as you weren't good day one. No, I've thought a lot about that. Unbelievable. Texter says, if yesterday was Black Monday, today is Two-Tone Blue Tuesday. I do think that's kind of funny. Oh, goodness gracious. Texter says, John McClain is not nearly as negative as Jared is. That is true. The difference is, though, is that John McClain doesn't cover Rand Carthon's football team every day. And I wonder how he would feel in that regard. Boy, I tell you, that press conference today, I am so worried. Oof. One texter says, Rand Carthon wants the authority without responsibility and accountability. Rand could have made the trades to get a first-round quarterback or move up to get a big-time left tackle. Now they look at an injured Jeffrey Simmons, no Derrick Henry, a weak wide receiver group, more losses on the defensive side, and a perpetually weak offensive line, and now no leadership. It was an ugly picture, and Carthon will be gone no later than the 2025 season conclusion. Good luck filling up a reduced stadium in 2026. Well, they're moving in 2027. So you're not so worried about that in 2026 or what have you. Texter said, you're way too critical on someone you truly have no facts for. You media are all dying for answers from someone who doesn't give it to you. I mean, it doesn't bother me that Rand Carthon says that he won't roll out the vision. Like, that's not the issue with me. The issue is that it's like, do you guys even have one? That's the issue. For whatever that is. Oof. 615-737-1025. Someone says if it weren't for injuries and penalties, the Titans would have been just fine. I don't even know if they're joking. I think they are, but goodness gracious. 615-737-1025 is the phone number here on Stillman and Company. Shane says I'm not as good as I was my first year. I'm not sure I agree with that. 615-737-1025. Hey, Window Nation is here. One day it's cold, one day it's hot. In the morning when the sun's out, it's cold. Then it gets hot because the sun comes out. That's what it's like living in Nashville, Tennessee. And when winter is here, that means you're going to start seeing some changes in your home and your windows may be holding you back. That's why you need to get with the pros at Window Nation. They are freaking experts when it comes to everything window related. WindowNation.com is where you go and talk to those pros, and replacing those old windows is easier and more affordable than ever, and more affordable than you think. No interest for 5 years and 50% off all window styles. Don't wait. Simply call the experts at Window Nation, get a consultant, they'll come on out, and they will say, hey, these are the windows we can add, and it will add value to your home. It'll help you on your energy costs, it'll make your home more aesthetically pleasing, and it'll increase the value. Simply call 866-90-NATION or visit WindowNation.com. Again, that's 866-90-NATION, WindowNation.com. Stillman and Company, we are live at Bridgestone Arena, Preds and Ducks tonight, and normally we have Predators game day in this spot presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty, but we're just going to go phones here. with the big news of Mike Vrabel's firing. In fact, TJ texted me about something. By the way, TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Get your home seen, heard, and sold with TJ at tjandersonhomes.com. TJ actually was texting me earlier today about something, and I was like, hey, Mike Vrabel's about to get fired. This was maybe about 5 minutes before Vrabel got fired. I was like, Mike Vrabel's about to get fired. I got to get back to you. So again, Predators Game Day is usually presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Adam in Portland is up next here on Stillman and Company. Adam, go ahead.
Well, I'm actually on my way to the Preds game, man. I couldn't not call you. Number one, the last guy, yes, you've absolutely gotten better since day one. But I will say Grant Carthon has a chance to get better. And I'm not going to, because I usually, if people are beating up on you, I like to see where it is and can maybe jump in if I can. But I'm not going to get on your side on this because I feel like, number one, it's not the day for that. Like, it's a Vrabel day, which you got to acknowledge that he's done plenty since he's been here. But I'm so happy that they went ahead and fired him. But it shouldn't be a Rand Carthon day. I'm hoping that they get this pick right, and I don't know if they're going to.
Did that press conference encourage you at all?
Well, I know that you're like super negative about the opportunity that we have in front of us about them getting it wrong, but I also think that I wasn't expecting Mike Mularkey to be good when he got good, and I wasn't expecting Mike Vrabel to carry the team to the playoffs a few years in a row. So I have no expectations, man. If you taper your expectations, then you'll probably be okay. If it's somebody good from San Francisco that I don't know, I'll be happy with that. Like, I don't want anybody I know. I'll just say that.
Okay. Adam from Portland says, hey, everybody, lower the expectations around here. CT is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, CT.
Jared, man, you ought to be doing a victory lap, buddy. I mean, everything that you wanted to happen this year happened.
That's not true.
Got rid of Tannehill.
That's not true,
got rid of
CT.
Tannehill. Come on, man. You was talking about how Willis looked good in the preseason, and then it's like, well, we need Levis, and then Levis gets hurt. Then they go back to Tannehill, and then it's like, get rid of Vrabel, get rid of Vrabel. Truth be told, it's been the whole damn offensive line the whole season, and Levis has got a lot of potential, but his ball placement's off, and he's not hitting receivers in stride. And if he doesn't start doing that, man, we're going to be quarterback shopping in the next 24 months.
That is much bigger than just Will Levis, or today is. Thank you for your call, CT. The reason why I'm sad, because it's like, you should be happy. You want him to fire Vrabel. I wanted them to clean house. And today, they didn't clean house. They stuck with the general manager who just gave a wild press conference. And that does worry me about the future. It makes me sad. It makes me sad for the future of my team. I feel like Moses in the desert. There is one request I have of the new Titans coach, whomever that might be, and that is, can you bring back Haas, the equipment guy that Vrabel fired after 40 years of loyal service to the organization? I mean, the guy was there for 40 years. Vrabel fired him because I guess they weren't good enough in the equipment room. And now that Vrabel's out, can we bring him back? That would be a step in the right direction. But according to Rand, all of their decisions today were unanimous anyways. Hopefully the Predators will cheer me up tonight. They take on Anaheim. Max Hers is sitting right here for the pregame show, which is coming up next. Stillman and Company. Good show today. See everybody tomorrow at 2.